All right, I'm going to call to order the Lynnwood City Council business meeting of Monday, March 9th, 2026. And I don't have my sheet in front of me. Who's doing flag salute? Oh, Council President, flag salute.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And I will call on the Council President for the land acknowledgement. Thank you.
We acknowledge that the city of Lynnwood is located on the traditional lands of the Snohomish people and the Confederation of Tulalip tribes and their families. For generations, these indigenous communities have lived on this land, and we recognize, support, and advocate alongside them. We also acknowledge the forced removal of indigenous communities from their homelands as a result of the 1855 Treaty of Point Elliott. We understand that land acknowledgements are only the first step in our efforts to support Coast Salish tribes and educate non-natives about their lived history. We strive to achieve this through building relationships with indigenous communities, supporting indigenous commerce, government-to-government partnerships, and lifting indigenous voices to create equity for all. Through these actions, we hope to not only pay respect to the past, but also collaborate in creating a sustainable future, hand in hand with the first protectors of our shared environment.
Thank you. Council Executive Assistant, roll call, please.
Mayor Hurst.
I'm here, thank you.
Council President Coelho.
Still here? Thank you.
Council Vice President Escamilla. Councilmember Lutweiler.
Here.
Councilmember Mata. Here. Councilmember Owings.
Present.
Councilmember Partial.
Ready.
Councilmember Wright. Here. Mayor, you have a quorum.
Thank you very much. Message and papers from the mayor. I want to provide some information on two of my initiatives that are in process. First, because of the roundtable held last month on the Lynnwood Hygiene Center, discussions will continue with the Jean Kim Foundation regarding the creation of a good neighbor policy. This will be an agreement between the foundation and the city, and the goal is to ensure the Hygiene Center continues to serve the unhoused within a partnership with the city and the surrounding neighborhood and businesses. I also want to update you on the formation of a committee that met last week that will provide assistance to Lynnwood families who are impacted by ICE detentions. The committee is made up of representatives of the Washington West African Center, the Latino Educational Training Institute, the Refugee and Immigrant Services Northwest, the Washington Immigrant Solidarity Network, the Edmonds School District, and city staff. I anticipate more details will be available before the end of the month. And lastly, I want to comment on the recent shootings involving teenagers in our community. On March 6th, a 15-year-old was shot at Meadowdale Park, and then 2 days later, a 17-year-old was shot just outside Lynnwood by Highway 99. I have no immediate solutions, which is why I appreciate the work of the Access Project, the Edmonds School District, and the creation of the Lynnwood Youth Council. We will build on these relationships while continuing to address some of the root causes of instability for the young people in our region. This is a priority for my administration, and I'm sure of the City Council as well. Thank you. Are there any written communications?
There are, Mayor. We have a written communication from an individual requesting the end of the flock camera contract, setting an example for other cities in Washington. An individual requested the end of the flock contract. A couple opposed a proposed resolution against lawful immigration enforcement, arguing it includes unnecessary language and could confuse residents. They worry that it may increase panic and misinformation about federal enforcement and create safety risks. They urge the city to revise the resolution to better reflect the community values and emphasize that crime is unacceptable regardless of immigration status.
All right, thank you. We'll go now to presentations and proclamations, and there is a proclamation for Women's History Month, and Councilmember Mata to the podium, please.
I'm going to start over. Whereas the City of Lynnwood recognizes March as the Women's History Month, whereas women of every race, class, and ethnic background have made historic contributions to the growth and strength of our nation in countless recorded and unrecorded ways, whereas the theme of this year's Women's History Month, Leading the Change, Women Shaping a Sustainable Future, expands our understanding of sustainability beyond just environmental concerns. It encompasses financial sustainability, community resilience, leadership succession, and intergenerational equity. And whereas women have been leaders not only in securing their own rights of suffrage and equal opportunity, but also in the abolitionist movement, the emancipation movement, and the industrial labor movement, the civil rights movement, and other movements, especially the peace movement, which create a more fair and just society for all. And whereas this Women's History Month, may we recognize the long, storied history of great women helping to realize our nation's founding promise and highest aspirations. And whereas in Lynnwood, all are welcome, we are proud and thankful for strong female representation and leadership both within our city departments and throughout our community. And now, therefore, be it resolved that we, Mayor George Hurst and the Lynnwood City Council, do hereby proclaim March as Women's History Month in Lynnwood. Woohoo! We call upon public officials, educators, businesses, communities, volunteers, and all the people of Lynnwood, Washington to observe this month and celebrate the women in our lives. At this time, is there anyone that would like to say a few words about being a woman in leadership, et cetera, et cetera?
Thank you, everyone. Hi, I'm Judge Valerie Buffew, the presiding judge of Lynnwood Municipal Court. I want to thank our mayor and our council members for the honor of accepting this proclamation recognizing Women's History Month. For much of our nation's history, women could enter the courtroom only as litigants, witnesses, or observers, not as judges and not as attorneys. That changed because women insisted that justice should not only be administered for the public, but by the full public. In 1970, Faye Kennedy joined Everett District Court as the first female judge in Snohomish County. In 1974, Catherine Trumbull became the first woman appointed to the Snohomish County Superior Court. And when Sandra Day O'Connor took her seat on the United States Supreme Court in 1981, she said that one day the presence of a woman on the bench would become unremarkable. Today, I share the Snohomish County bench with Judge Anna Alexander, Judge Tam Bowie, Judge Linda Coburn, Judge Mary Beth Dingledye, Judge Rochelle Francis, Judge Beth Frazier, Commissioner Susan Harness, Judge Millie Judge, Judge Amy Kastner, Judge Jennifer Langben, Judge Cindy Larson, Judge Ramey Leonard, Judge Trish Lyon, Commissioner Lisa Michelli, Judge Jennifer Millette, Judge Karen Moore, Judge Jennifer Rancourt, Judge Whitney Rivera, Judge Lori Towers, and Commissioner Nicole Wagner. Our presence on the bench today is, in the best possible way, unremarkable. Women's History Month honors the women who came first, so that today we're not remarkable simply for being here. Instead, we are remarkable for the individual professionalism, compassion, and dedication that we bring to the work of ensuring that justice is carried out with fairness and integrity every day. Thank you.
Good evening, Council. My name is Tiffany Cruzy, and I'm the Victim Services Coordinator for the Lynnwood Police Department. And I, too, want to talk about women's history in the field of law enforcement. In the beginnings of law enforcement, when women were allowed to enter into the field, they were entered in as jail matrons, they were entered in as clerks, and that of pseudo-social workers, helping with those who had children on scene and trying to assist with providing care and empathetic services. We've seen throughout the history of policing women rise up in the ranks. I've worked under a female chief, Chief Amber Kirkpatrick, for the Federal Way Police Department. I have my mentor that I have worked with is Dr. Linda Forst, who is a captain of Boca Raton Police Department, who not only helped craft legislation in the state of Florida in 1992 for anti-stalking laws, but she also became a professor here and the director of the Criminal Justice Department at Shoreline College. And she has taught and has mentored hundreds and hundreds of young women going into the career of law enforcement. I am lucky to say that the women that I work with here in the city of Lynnwood are exemplary and professional employees of the city of Lynnwood and are exactly what we want to have in the field of law enforcement. Thank you.
Alyssa Jones, the Executive Director of Lynnwood Food Bank. Good evening, and thank you for the City of Lynnwood. The City of Lynnwood, is it working? The City of Lynnwood and the City Council tonight for recognizing Women's History Month. Women have always played a powerful role in shaping strong and compassionate committees. Through leadership, service, and care for others, as Lynnwood Food Bank, I have the privilege of working alongside incredible women on our staff and volunteers who show up every day with dedication, kindness, and determination to ensure our neighbors have access to food, dignity, and support. Their leadership reminds us that strength of a community is often built through everyday acts of compassion. It is an honor to accept the proclamation on behalf of the many women in Lynnwood who lead, serve, and quietly make this community stronger every single day. Thank you.
Muy buenas tardes. Good afternoon. I'm going to be starting in Spanish and then moving to English. Muy buenas noches a todos. Oh, I'm sorry, introduce myself. My name is Marisol Bejarano, Director of Health and Wellness Programs for LETI, the Latino Educational Training Institute. Buenas noches a todos. Me siento profundamente honrada de aceptar este reconocimiento en nombre del Latino Educational Training Institute, mejor conocido como LETI, durante el mes de la historia de mujer. So good evening, everyone. I am deeply honored to accept this recognition on behalf of the Latino Educational Training Institute, better known as LETI, during Women's History Month. Esta es una celebración de la fuerza, la resiliencia y el liderazgo de las mujeres en nuestra comunidad. This is a celebration of a strength, resilience, and leadership of women in our community. Mi trayectoria me ha mostrado la importancia del empoderamiento, la mentoría y el apoyo comunitario, valores que impulsan mi trabajo y compromiso de elevar a otros. My journey has shown me the importance of empowerment, mentorship, and community support, values that drive my work and commitment to uplift others. Creo que cuando las mujeres reciben apoyo y oportunidades, pueden romper barreras y inspirar cambios para las generaciones futuras. I believe that women are supported and given opportunities, they can break barriers and inspire change for generations to come. Estoy agradecida por organizaciones como LETI, que nos han ayudado a mí y a muchas otras personas a realizar nuestro potencial y ser voces para quienes aún luchan por sus sueños. I'm grateful for organizations like LETI, which have helped me and many others realize our potential and serve as voices for those still striving for their dreams. Gracias por reconocer las contribuciones de las mujeres y por apoyarnos mientras seguimos construyendo una comunidad más fuerte y equitativa. Thank you for recognizing women's contributions and for standing with us as we continue to build a stronger, more equitable community. Juntas, nos fortalecemos y prosperamos. Together, we empower each other to thrive. Thank you.
Hello, council members. Thank you for having us. I did not prepare anything, but I do want you to know a few things about your fire department. I'm Nicole Picknell. I'm a medical services officer with South County Fire. I've been in fire service for 35 years. In the beginning, when I was often told I didn't belong. Jennifer Stolwerk has also been in South County Fire for 21 years. You should know the statistics today. Less than 2.5% women are career firefighters in the nation. If you add volunteers in, it's 5%. I'm really proud that South County Fire is closer to 10 or 11%. We are a much higher percentage than any other department, probably in the state of Washington. And we are committed, Chief Maxwell is committed to hosting a Women in the Fire Service workshop that we started 2 years ago. We followed King County. And we bring in 50. We have about 125 candidates that apply. We can host 50. And these are women that want to just see what it's about. And we let them wear bunker gear. They start chainsaws. They climb ladders. And all of the instructors are women from South Snohomish County. Everything from firefighters, paramedics, community health workers, battalion chiefs, division chiefs, and chiefs, all from Snohomish County. And so just seeing where the fire service started and being started when I was really young to now, I'm really proud of that. And I just want to share that with you because I think the next generation of women is to really mentor our other women so that they know that they can do it too. So thank you for having us.
Hi, my name is Zainab. I'm from the Washington West African Center. I just want to say thank you for all of us and for all of you here. Being a woman in 2026, I don't know where to start. It looks like we are progressing, but there is a lot need to be done. There is women dying around the world just because they want to be free. Free of talking, free of living, free to have a right to exist. But the funniest thing is the society rely on women. The future generation rely on women. But we're still fighting. And I want everybody to reflect on that. We give life by putting our life at risk. We make sure foods are on the table. Everybody here was made by a woman. This society cannot run without us. And I want all of us to recognize that. A lot of women work 9 to 5 and still have time to raise our kids, to cook, to clean. The Teresa, the Alisa, the ones that don't have much power, but they exist in our everyday life. The nurse that makes sure we are all taken care of. And I want to say thank you for all the amazing women that make this work possible, that make us, all of us, the people we are. We can serve the community if we don't have women, because they are very, very important. From Africa to here, every single day, I see how it was difficult just to have a right, just to be me. And I don't think so. The world right now needs that. we really need to appreciate all the women, all our sisters, our mother, our brother, our wife, because the work that they do is incredible. And especially the women that work in the community, that have businesses, that make sure the community run. And I also want to thank Lynnwood and everything that they put in place. The police department, they have the Women Empowering First Defense class. And a lot of things are being done. And I want to say thank you for that. But there is also a lot of things to be done. So thank you, and happy Women's Day to all the women in the room. Thank you so much for all of you.
You guys want to go take a picture in front of the dais?
Yeah, come on up front for a photo opportunity.
Welcome back, Ashley.
All right. Now we come to the public comment section in our meeting. The public comment segment of our agenda provides an opportunity for community members to give their comments to the mayor and council members. We're here to listen to your comments, and there will be no response or debate with you. Comments should be related to the City of Lynnwood or agenda items only. We have set aside 30 minutes for individuals to have an opportunity to speak for up to 3 minutes each. First, we will call on those who signed up to speak on the list outside of council chambers here at City Hall. Next, those who have pre-registered on Zoom. Are there any pre-registered for Zoom? No. All right. So then after that, we will call on anyone present that did not sign up prior to the meeting but wish to speak in person. Individuals providing public comment must not disrupt or otherwise impede the orderly conduct of the meeting. This is not a forum for hate speech, and it will not be tolerated. People seeking to use this forum for that purpose will have their mic turned off and or be removed from the meeting. We ask that the audience refrain from clapping, cheering, or booing. Comments for the purpose of assisting a campaign for election of any person to any office or for the promotion of or of opposition to any ballot proposition are not allowed. When you are called upon to speak, if you are going to be in person, please come to the podium, confirm the microphone is on, then state your name and zip code for the record and make your comments. When your 3 minutes are complete, you'll be prompted to conclude your remarks. Thank you in advance for taking the time to share your comments with us. So, one individual has signed up for public comment, and that is Quinn Van Order.
Howdy, folks. Quinn Van Order, 98036. My thoughts are my own. No more shirt today. I've retired it, and I'm thrilled to have done so. I'm here today to extend a heartfelt thank you to all of you. I had a lot of fun engaging with city-level politics over these last 5 months, and I'm really thrilled that y'all listened to the voices of your community who expressed concerns about mass surveillance. There are other cities around us who paused their network and are waiting for 6002 to legitimize this technology, and I'm really glad that this isn't one of those cities. Senate Bill 602 does not address the concerns that have been raised, and I'm really thrilled that this experiment has come to a close. I have been involved in politics federally, at the state level, and at the city level. And I find myself much more energized and engaged at the city level than anything else. I've tried and I've ground my nose against the grindstone that is higher level politics. And the fact of the matter is, I don't have hundreds of millions of dollars to buy myself a voice. With Citizens United at the higher levels, money is speech, and I don't have the kind of money to make my speech heard, which is why I'm so thrilled by the reaffirmation of democratic principles that were shown here. People were able to come and look you in the eyes and speak with you and be heard, and that has tremendous value. In the wider scope of things, that's something that I think our country really needs. So from the bottom of my heart, thank you for listening to your community. Thank you for engaging. Thank you for all the work that you do.
Very good, thank you. Any members of the audience wish to speak? Yes, sir. Great. If you could give us your name and zip.
Sure you want me talking louder? Okay. Thank you. On March 5th, the Everett Daily Herald wrote that Edmonds Public Works Director Andy Ream supports the Lynnwood expansion and upgrade project. And it's complicated because it also serves about 16% of us Edmonds residents that live in the area. So this is not a black and white deal, obviously. And he likewise affirmatively stated that at the most recent Edmonds City Council meeting. In February, we had a community meeting at the Meadowdale Clubhouse, and the mayor was there, and he indicated that this expansion project is not a blindsided thing. It's been under discussion for a while between the two cities. Although our neighborhood hadn't heard about it until October of 2025. And it suggested that there's been some efforts or some joint progress on the expansion project between the two cities. And that makes sense, of course, because they, to a degree, share the facility and the costs of it. As I said, the records show that the project's been in some kind of informal discussions and planning stages for the last 5 years or so. And they're going to accelerate from here on out with design and estimates of costs and duration of construction, which is suggested to last about 10 years. And of course, recently, 2 Edmonds residences in the city limits of the city of Edmonds have been appropriated by the city of Lynnwood for the expansion project. So it's now, the project is creeping out of the city of Lynnwood city limits, if you will, into the city limits of the Meadowdale neighborhood, which is in Edmonds.
Your time has elapsed, so please wrap it up. Sorry, I went quickly.
The estimated cost is about $330 million. Now that's escalating as we go on, but it looks like the contribution for Edmonds is going to be around $33 million. There's something in construction and long-term construction called fat tail. I don't want to go into the discussion about that, but that means in projects of this nature, what you have is escalation of costs over the 10-year time. So it looks like it's not going to be $330 million. It's going to be more than that. And, of course, the Edmonds contribution will be more percentage-wise. This all we understand.
We're going to ask you to wrap
The
up.
question is the City of Edmonds mayor and council 100% on board with this, or is this something that they haven't agreed to yet? I mean, what's the conflict going to be going forward?
Right.
That's our concern.
Please forward any more comments to the council and myself via email. That'd be great. Thank you.
Okay. Well, thank you for your time.
Anyone else in the audience wish to meet Mr. Heichel? Yes.
Ted Heichel, 98036. Actually, I didn't really come with a prepared statement tonight, but as I came here, the word cars kept coming to me, trying to get off my street from 191st Place to 40th. It's that stream of traffic that has increased over the years. It makes it difficult to get out and get over here. And I noticed that one of the council members got here a few minutes late, and I bet you it was because of traffic, of cars. Having worked in Bellevue for 22 years and having been on the council during some of that time, I know how tough it is to get here. So I just thought I might suggest to the council president and to the mayor, if you change the time from 6 o'clock to 6:30 at least. We used to meet at 7, but if you went to 6:30, it might be a little more helpful for your staff and for people to come and be in the audience too. And there's always the question of parked cars around apartments. If you go out to 194th Street, start at the police station, go east, and you'll find after 6 o'clock at night, so many people who live in the apartments right in that area have to park on that street. And it's only going to get worse. As I mentioned a few weeks ago, I met a lady out walking her dog, and I said, "Oh, you live up in the apartment?" Said, "Yeah." She said, "Oh, it's so much nicer now. I got a parking space in the apartment unit. Before that, I had to park on the street." As we put up more and more and more apartments and require less and less parking spaces, half a parking space per unit in that one apartment building, what's going to happen with the rest of them? People are going to have cars, and the city has a responsibility to provide for parking on site and not off site, as will probably be talked about later tonight. The other thing was boarding houses. Yeah, we have them. We have one on our street. There's one up here right across from the recreation center, and my wife and I go by there every Sunday morning to go to church, and guess what? I didn't think they could do it, but they did. They got more cars in that one little, it's not a lawn, it's just a parking area in front of a house on 44th, and there were at least 14 cars parked at that house. Don't we have a restriction on how many people can live in a boarding house? I looked up boarding houses on the LMC, and all I could see was a definition. So if the staff could give me the citing of where that requirement is, if it's still there, I'd appreciate it. Thank you.
Any other public comment? Sir?
Is it okay if I grab this? Is that okay? More comfortable. I don't have something in front of me, so I'm Judah, 98037. I'm going to try to make more eye contact this time, so it's nice to see your lovely faces. Hope you're doing well. So where should we start tonight? Is there an update on Flock? Did I miss something? I listened to the Wednesday. Did they get rid of it? Is that what happened? It's done? Okay, great. Okay, cool. I was going to talk about that, but I guess we don't have to anymore, so cool. I was going to play devil's advocate about it, but yeah, thing in the past. It's just a clump of words now, so okay, that's great. Let's see what else I was going to talk about. Okay, so Wednesday, I noticed there was an immigration section that Isabel Mata led. I thought that was interesting. There was a comment about that tonight, too. So my thoughts on that, I think the language is fine. It is interesting because you yourself debated whether it was performative or not. If I was really cynical, I would say that, but I'm not. I think it's fine. I think it's good for us to know what our rights are. That's totally fair. It's good for us to also not get into legal trouble with the police, and we want to support the police too, so that's totally fair. Yeah, I think that's totally fine. I think, the better information that people have, and the more accurate that is, then the better off we'll be. So I think we can have some agreement on there, actually. So that's great. That's point of agreement. As far as disagreement, I think how do I phrase it? I guess I don't understand the fear from the community that they are not safe by the police. I understand there have been some pretty extreme cases, but overall, like if you look at some of the statistics on the reported ones anyway, accidental deportations, the Trump administration has done like 500,000 to 600,000 deportations in the last year. And they've reported about 40 accidental ones. And some of those were actually just people who were detained. So about half of those were detained and released within a couple hours. So it's like, I do think there's a bit of a sensationalizing of the issue. The extreme cases do get around the fastest around the internet. But overall, I think, we're getting rid of the criminals. That's the priority of the administration. There's no reason for people to be upset about that. Like, if there are people who you think have been wrongfully deported, then say their names, but there's not many of them. So I'd be happy to have more exposure about that. But overall, I think it's actually pretty popular. It's the reason Trump won is if these people committed crimes, then we're going to deport them. That's the right way to go about this. So and the last thing I'll say, it's interesting. So just on immigration in general, is the idea of the process is you write up a proposal, and that just comes from the council. That's step one of how this all works. Okay, that's interesting. So I would just encourage you. So my speech on abortion 2 weeks ago, I'm running out of time. I would encourage a proposal on abortion. I think it's really important. So like I said, with immigration, we've only had 40 wrong detainees. The number of deaths are pretty statistically insignificant, whereas Planned Parenthood reports themselves about 500,000 babies are killed every year. And that's what they are. That's what's happening there. So I think that's much more urgent than immigration. I strongly encourage you to write a proposal on that. That's much more urgent for this community, for every community here. So thank you.
Thank you. Any other public comment? Yes, ma'am.
Elizabeth Lunsford, 98037. I wanted to say how lovely that proclamation is. What a change, I believe, of culture. For the last 4 years, the people invited seem a little gate-kept for personal agendas, not to all of them. So seeing a wide selection of people to women represent, I notice a change. Something that I'm going to put a two bits, if we can stop saying wrap it up, I think of Frizzell, the last mayor, maybe please conclude. I think it's just a little more respectful, especially if when people come from Edmonds, I can understand why there might be a little frustration with the situation. I have frustration that I wish that the sewer treatment plant was prioritized over the corruption center across the street, but here we are today. One thing I wanted to talk about that I noticed is also with cars. I've noticed a change in the Lynnwood police cars that looks like they're kind of blended in. I don't know if the paint job changed, but before there was a high contrast of Lynnwood police on the side. In either it was black lettering on white, which is known for, but now it's just black on black almost. So it kind of seems, but at least they're identified, but I think there should be more of a significance to recognize it. Something I have been asking about a lot since that is the removal of unmarked police cars during these times. It's Women's Month, and I do not feel safe with the Lynnwood police ever, especially over this past endorsement and who they endorsed. If I'm a law-abiding citizen. I drive really slow, but if I ever get pulled over and if I don't recognize that's a police car and that's a possibility of an imposter, which it happens, I'm not pulling over. I'm calling 911 and making sure that that person behind me is going to be a credible person, and I'm calling someone else because, A, even if it's Lynnwood PD, still don't feel safe, and then there's imposters. So there's a lot of more implementations for this proclamation, and there are a lot more policy changes that can happen. The one that I've talked about for a very long time now is unmarked cars. There's no reason why Lynnwood needs unmarked cars. Lynnwood Police can just be more. And it's, again, the paint job, at least it's identified. But hopefully that process also, if there was a change, I believe should have come across council for approval. Oh, and thank you for the mention, a little bit quick. For the shooting, there is some hardship that it's come the norm. And first thing I read is I was relieved that we're not having a vigil. But thank you for including that statement because there's still a lot of damage that has been done. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Any other public comment? Seeing none, public comment is now closed. So next on the agenda is council comments, and we will start with Council Member Lutweiler.
Thank you, Mayor. I did want to acknowledge, just with the shootings, the incidents, I wanted to acknowledge the fear and uncertainty and confusion that people feel. There's frustration. I've heard from community members, are the neighborhood parks safe to take my kids to? Are they a safe place to be as a family? Why are these things happening? Why are we not able to do something much earlier on to help these youth get out of these situations? And this has been trauma that the city's been enduring for the last several years. The mayor mentioned, and I just wanted to reiterate, we've taken, I think, great steps to partner with groups like Access Project. Councilmember Escamilla has helped us to create the first youth council. This council in the last couple of years has passed what I think is probably historic levels of funding for public safety, also for helping bring about things like the Lynnwood Neighborhood Center. So I think the council, I think I could speak for everyone here, that we really want to do everything we can to continue partnering with those organizations, partnering with the police and the school district, just to do everything we can holistically to provide opportunities for youth, help get them out of the past that they find themselves in that lead to these really traumatic, terrible incidents. We don't have the answers and the solutions and everything tonight, but I just wanted to at least acknowledge what had happened. The Meadowdale Park is just a couple of streets over from where I live, but it really doesn't matter. Any park in Lynnwood is surrounded by families, and when these things happen, it's something that we need to respond to urgently. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Wright.
Thank you, Mayor. Just to echo what you were saying, my thoughts are with the students and the young folks that are victims of violence, and to our entire community. I do also echo the sentiments of the mayor that we must work together to address these root causes. I am happy to hear about the youth council because it brings the youth into the conversation. I also want to implore, if anybody did see anything or witness anything, to please reach out to Lynnwood Police. I do honor the fear that our residents are feeling. My family was touched by gun violence several years ago in a DV situation. I know how our community is feeling. I know how these families are feeling. And I'm hoping that we are able to have a conversation going forward involving our youth about their future. It's extremely important. The other few things I have, I'll speak really fast for. Last Wednesday I got to tour the Snohomish County 911 Center, and it is absolutely beautiful. I was mind blown for it. I just want to thank Kurt Mills for organizing that tour. I was there with the police chief. Also met with our finance director here at the City of Lynnwood and got a high-level overview of their department. And lastly, I'll have several orientations with Public Works, but met with Director Bond and Marcy and Johnny, and had the technical awesomeness of that traffic signal room over there, which was amazing. Saturday, I got to attend the celebration of International Women's Day at Spruce by Letty and Edmonds School District. It was very lovely to connect with nonprofits and members of our community, but I specifically wanted to touch on briefly the powerful speeches from our Council Vice President Escamilla and Councilmember Mata. Your words were authentic and powerful and inspiring. You moved the room and you encouraged each of us to remember our roots and quiet those doubts that we may carry and take up spaces in places that we know we need to take up space in. Also to reach out to community, because some community is all that we have. So thank you both for your words of encouragement, and know that the room received your message. Thanks.
Thank you. Council President.
Thank you, Mayor. I do want to echo the comments of my colleagues about the recent shooting, and then just say, can I offer the rest of my time to my female colleagues who have yet to go? Want to go a little longer?
Now I'm going to have to do math. Alrighty. So, Council Vice President.
Thank you, President Quayle. I appreciate that. Thank you, everybody that is here tonight. Thank you, everybody, for your public comments. And thank you to all of the beautiful women that came for International Women's Day. As a first-generation high school and college graduate, a Latina, a mother, a professional, and a public servant, having that keynote, it was my first one, was very powerful. I came in with this speech that I had written and been nervous about and sweating over right before it was ready to go. And when it was time to go, it was a moment in this room by my colleague asking all of us if we had a role model. And all of a sudden, my keynote changed, and the room was about it being okay not to have that role model. And so if you guys didn't know, the theme for this year for International Women's Day is Give to Gain. It's rights, justice, and action. And I just hope that our community sees the three females up here and that you can see in action, in real life, this is vision and this is hope. In my culture, there's a saying that says, "Sí se puede," which in English is "yes, you can." And so I just want to give all the little girls and honestly boys out there that don't have a role model, and all the ladies out there that, you know, even don't know what you're doing and are pivoting, just know that it's okay not to have a role model, and it's okay not to know what you're doing, and reinvent yourself at any time. The only other thing I wanted to touch about, sadly, is the youth violence that happened over the weekend. And it's never okay, but it's even scarier during a time when school's getting out. I understand that there was a couple of schools in the area placed during lockdown. So not only the fear of the age of that community, but all the youngins they're under. And, you know, you have the fear of the lockdowns, you have the fear of the rumor, you have the fear of it being at a park, was it at a school? And so I'm so glad that our police quickly responded. Our mayor issued a statement, and that our whole council, this is our priority, and the youth council, we hope to gain knowledge from our youth. And matter of fact, Meadowdale was the first high school that we went to, and we were there last week, and we got over 100 applications at that school, and we have 2 more lined up and 2 more ready to go. We have kids that want to talk to us, and they want to tell us what's going on in our underrepresented communities. So there's hope. Thank you. Have a good evening.
Very good. Councilmember Partial.
Thank you, Mayor. I do want to concur with all my colleagues. I won't belabor the point, but I know I take it very personally when harm occurs in Lynnwood, and none of us want to see that. So it's very sad. And I want to thank all the women for coming and celebrating Women's History Month with us and International Women's Day. And congratulations to Vice President Escamilla and Councilmember Mata on their performance at Spruce Elementary. It sounds like it was fantastic. And I do want to thank our very own Judge Baffieu for coming in. I actually was thinking about the bench today and Sandra Day O'Connor and RBG, and it was really nice of you to cover all the women judges in Snohomish County. And I always enjoy when there's a reference to Judge because she has such a great name. So thank you for that.
Councilmember Mata.
Awesome. Thank you all for being here and everybody who's come. Just a couple of things to touch on. We're going to be talking about the resolution a little bit later, but I just wanted to clarify a couple of different, I'm not even going to go there. I'm not even going to go there. You can look up some statistics to see how many U.S. citizens have been detained by ICE, and the fear in our community is very, very real. So there's a very real need for this. Even if there's not much that we can do on a local level, we have to do something, and I've talked about that over and over again, that we can't just do nothing. So even if it's a resolution where we're asking, our mayor to direct staff to, build a website with more Know Your Rights, like that's the bare minimum at this point. We're living in a time where, there are leaders in place trying to ruin our democracy and take over and build, a white Christian nation that reflects their values and not the values of everybody in the world, in our country. And it's really important that we have local leaders who are standing up and saying, no, actually, these are the values that we want to hold for us here in our city. So for International Women's Day and Women's Month, I low-key hate that it's a thing because we should just be celebrating women all of the time. And if you know me personally, you know that I'm constantly talking about the rise of the matriarchy and what that actually means. So I just wanted to take a couple of seconds that I have left to explain what that is. So for people that don't know, matriarchy is not just patriarchy, but with women on top of the power structure. It's totally different. It's a different system, one that's not built on hierarchy, dominance, competition, or short-term thinking. Instead, matriarchy is rooted in nurture, collaboration, protection of life, and long-term thinking. Matriarchs don't rule over others the way patriarchs do. Instead, they guide communities towards wisdom through meditation, mediation, and collective care. So to all of the people out there, all of the women and the men, if we truly want to, dismantle the patriarchy and the systems that oppress, we have to change the way we do things. And I like to think that our council is making moves to do the right things, to have the hard conversations, to work together, to collaborate. We're not spending time, beating each other down or digging and being rude. I really like to think that we're doing something different in a way that is leading us towards a future that is rooted in matriarchal values. And that does not mean men are at the bottom and men can't be mayor. It doesn't mean any of those things. It just means we're doing things differently, not through dominance and oppression, but through nurturing and compassion and empathy. So thank you all for being here, and let's make every day Women's Day. Yeah.
Thank you. Councilmember Owings.
Thank you. First, I just want to say my heart goes out to the family, victims, friends of the shooting that happened, both of them. It's terrible to see or hear any of that happening. I was actually on a tour with the Parks Department when that actually happened on Friday, so it's very real. I did go on the same Public Works tour as Councilmember Wright. We had a good time getting to explore what they do back there with the traffic lights. It's pretty interesting. I think we have the perfect person in that position. He seems to love his job. Not only does he have the knowledge, but he looks like he should be in that job, honestly. So that was a great, as I said, also I went on the Parks and Recs tour, which was great, getting to see all the different parks. I think that it would be really important for the rest of the council to do that same type of tour. I mean, I'm sure that the ones that have been here longer have already gone on that. But specifically, we went to Gold Park and walked around. I did see what the concerns from the neighbors there. Even just in our short walk there was 5 people groups of people openly using drugs, which is not something that we really want in Lynnwood Parks. But the hygiene center is something that we very much so need here. We need to support it. We just need to figure out how we can do it in a way that also protects our neighbors. That's all I got.
Excellent. I think everyone has had a chance to speak. So we're going to go to item 10, a public hearing. At this time, we will hold a public hearing on agenda item 10A, which is on the Unified Development Code Miscellaneous Update 2. And I get to do my spiel first. So, thank you for attending and for participating. The public may express their views on matters under consideration by the City Council. Decisions will not be made until after the public has had the opportunity to share their views. This is a legislative action, and common rules for legislative public hearings apply. Public hearings must be fair and free of conflict of interest. Before we start the proceedings, and this also applies to myself, does any council member or myself have any conflict of interest regarding this matter? Seeing none. This is how we will hold the hearing. As mayor, I will facilitate the hearing and council deliberation. City staff will provide a summary of the matter at hand. So the City Council may ask clarifying questions of staff. The public will be invited to share information or views you wish the City Council to consider. And then next, I will call for speakers from the public. First, those on the sign-up list that was located outside Chambers entrance. Anybody sign up? No? Okay. After that, I will call for speakers joining the meeting remotely and then call for speakers present. In accordance with Council Rule number 2.9.4, Section J, III, an individual's public testimony shall be limited to 10 minutes with no exceptions. After all, individuals who wish to speak, provide testimony, have had the opportunity. I will ask if those who have already provided testimony would like to speak once more. This will be your final opportunity to speak to this topic. City Council may ask clarifying questions of speakers about their testimony. However, this is not an opportunity for back and forth discussion or debate. I will invite city staff to offer clarifying information responsive to the public comments, and then I will close the public hearing. After the hearing is closed, the City Council can begin its deliberation and ultimately determine what action should be taken. I hope you all took notes. So, this public hearing is now underway, and I will ask, who do we have? We have Community Planning Manager Carl Almgren and Planner Zach Spencer in front of us. They will provide an overview of the topic at hand.
Good evening, Mayor, Council. Tonight, we're going to provide a very brief presentation. In your packet did include a red line section of the ordinance. What's nice, we're not going through the entire ordinance. We're just providing a lot of the high-level summaries. Much of what the discussion tonight is really about refinement. We've seen a couple applications come in under the middle housing regulations. We're identifying things that need to have some clarity, and we're really hoping to be able to continue to make those adjustments as time moves on and continue to help improve our permitting process. With that, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Planner Spencer, who will be able to highlight the discussion as well as highlight the conversation that we had at Planning Commission, where they did provide a recommendation for approval on February 12th. Zach?
Thank you, Carl. Good evening, Mayor, Council. As Carl hinted at, this is a trailing update to the Unified Development Code that we passed, the City Council passed into law last June. When we passed that ordinance for the new development code, we did expect several trailing updates. This is the second one. The first one was passed by the City Council last November. This update, like Carl said, provides a multitude of code changes that are minor in nature to help facilitate the permit review process, assist applicants in better understanding of the code, and similar things like that. Next slide, please. So this slide is a list of a lot of the minor changes that we're not going to go into further detail on during the presentation, including the minor languages for clarity, throughout the code, We updated a couple of maps that included the city boundary to reflect recent annexation of the old Alderwood Middle School. We removed the old DBS office as an official posting location, as the city does not maintain that office anymore. And we also have minor changes to a definition of a few terms. Alrighty, next slide, please.
So I wanted to highlight this one specifically as we're living in a new world where state legislation is constantly evolving, and we do require ground floor commercial in certain zones throughout the city. The planned commercial development zone is one of those. We wanted to provide clarification on two aspects. One is some of the ground floor occupiable, such as you could have a residential unit on the ground floor. Or is there an area that is providing a specific commercial use? And so what we have specifically in the code for clarification is that multifamily structures that are along the street frontage must have a minimum amount of occupiable space, and then 20% of the street frontage must be that of a commercial use. When we look at the latest bill from SB 6026, we would be in compliance with the new state legislation, which has passed both the House and the Senate, and is looking towards the governor's signature at this point. So as we're in a constant dynamic, our code does fit within that changes that we're seeing. So it would be a part of what we look forward to reviewing with other 6026 changes in the future.
Thank you, Carl. On the next slide, we are showing changes to the accessory buildings, structures, and garage regulations in the residential zones. The biggest change that you see on the slide here is the addition of the word structures to the section header, further clarifying the application of this section and what it could be used for. Like Carl said at the beginning, a lot of these changes are coming as members of the public are looking to do projects in their properties, and we find that the code needs to be updated for clarity. So we have also modified some references to setbacks for accessory structures. Some of our regulations changed from using lot coverage to floor area ratio. And we also changed some of the labeling for structures. On the next slide, we have regulations for shipping containers, continuing the previous code precedent that shipping containers are a prohibited use either as a storage or accessory structure in residential zones. We also, to shipping containers, added an exception to allow the temporary use of storage containers at commercial businesses, mostly on a seasonal basis. We see this happening throughout the city. And we also allowed an exception to allow shipping containers to be built into housing or other habitable structures as long as they meet any prevailing design standards. On the next slide, we have changes to the exceptions to residential building setbacks. Residential setbacks are measured, and all setbacks are measured from property line to the exterior of the building. However, we like to have flexibility in these code sections, and we wanted to further clarify where that flexibility lies. So these changes do not necessarily affect what is allowed to encroach, but just where it's allowed to encroach. So architectural elements, chimneys, bay windows, roof eaves can encroach into all the setbacks, and then things like mechanical equipment are only allowed on interior setbacks to encroach. They're still permitted on the front of homes, but just not within the setbacks. The next slide discusses changes to the building height in city center table. We are clarifying the approach of the current tiered wedding cake standards. We are not changing any of the standards. This is maintaining the intent of the code in the first version of the UDC and also in the previous development code. City center has always been designed as a tiered cake with height standards increasing as you move towards the center of the city center area. On the next slide, I have an example of what this might look like. So this is at the corner of 200th and 48th, very near the light rail station, just north of the light rail station. This shows a residential neighborhood, it's a residential 45 zone on the left side of the image, and you can see there's the buffer shown of 150 feet from that zoning. The height restriction changes. So if a developer were to come in and build one building on this site, they would be restricted to 75 feet in height on the left side of the light blue line, and they could go up to 140 feet in height on the right side of the light blue line. This is, again, not a change, but it is just a clarification of how these standards are applied to buffer the more intense city center uses from multifamily residential. And the next slide is to do with setbacks in the neighborhood commercial zone. In this zone, we have both a minimum and maximum setback. So the intent of this is to ensure that development is located near to the street. We don't have front-loaded parking lots on pedestrian areas so that the interface in the pedestrian area can be good. However, the code did not consider developments with multiple buildings or some things like cottage housing, so we provided a few exceptions to the code. The intent of the previous standards is still in place. And Carl gets to talk about the last slide.
The one with the most words on it. This slide is really actually relatively simple. We're expanding and clarifying the use of unit lot subdivisions to be used for residential developments. And the unit lot subdivision process allows fee simple ownership of units to go with land and building as opposed to condominiums, which would only be that of the building area. So one of the things we wanted to help clarify, and we identified this, was under our current code, the unit lot subdivision could become a very performative permit process where review has already been accomplished. And what we don't want to have reviews be done for the sake of being done for a review. We want review to include and add value to projects. So what we have done is help clarify when other project reviews do not need to be accomplished because you're already doing public noticing, you're already doing your hearings, you're already doing your SEPA notice. What we don't like to do is provide additional review where it is solely just to add an additional fee, to do another review, to add additional timelines. We want to make sure that we can help consolidate that as much as possible. So that is what Section A under 2 is. And then what we went ahead and did is include a project example on 2 different levels specifically to help clarify that. Such as if a project is included in a planned unit development, that is an application that goes to the hearing examiner. We don't also need to do additional noticing because that project has already been noticed for the application, for the hearing, and for the decision. So allowing this consolidation allows that to be completed together. On the right is an image of what one type of unit lot subdivision can look like. This would be where each unit has their ability to own their land underneath their building, but then there's common ownership of larger, essentially association grounds on top of that, the driveways, the utilities, things like that. This is one example. Can we go to the next slide? So tonight is the public hearing. We're looking forward to the public testimony on the item, and then staff is asking for City Council consideration at the next business meeting on the 23rd, and we are available for any clarifying questions.
Not yet. So let me do my script. So are there any new written materials or correspondence that have not yet been distributed to City Council? None. All right. Now, does any member of the City Council have a question to clarify information provided during the staff presentation? You guys, okay. Now I have to turn the page, sorry. So now I will call on members of the public to speak during this public hearing. Are there any members of the public who would like to speak to this matter? All right. Oh, sorry. Yes, sir. In the back with raised hand. You have 10 minutes to speak.
Ted Heichel, 98036. I might need more. I disagree with the legislation that was passed in Olympia, and I disagree with some of the things that are in the presentation tonight. And I will refer to them by the page number that I printed out from the agenda. On page 2, under section 1.40.020 enforcement. Whenever the city has cause to believe that a violation of LMC Titles 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 12, 15, 16, 17, 18, and 21, that's why I may take more time, has been or is being committed, the department director responsible for the administrating that title is to act right across the street from the center. Is that a legal use of property that is residential where you have 12 or 14 cars parked? But, and I brought this up a number of times before the council, I've never heard of any action taken by the city to address that question. I'd like to hear from them if they would like to talk to me about it. On page 13, neighborhood commercial. It shows minimum lot area is none. Minimum lot width is none. Maximum building coverage is 90%. Minimum interior setback is 10 feet. This zone was created by the council because we had a few spots in the city where in early days things were established, they were never codified, and rather than saying if anything happened to that little Kim's convenience store up on 176th Street, if it burned down, that they couldn't build again. So we created neighborhood commercial. Now under these provisions, and especially the height provision, Kim's little store up there could get torn down and a 4-story building, 3 stories of residence and 1 story in a neighborhood, in a residential neighborhood, completely changing the housing around that area. Maybe that's what you want to do. But the people who live there don't want that. They don't want a 4-story building on that corner. Talk to them. But also involved in that neighborhood commercial zone is a whole lot about bicycle parking. Well, if you're going to build 3 stories of apartments on top of Kim's convenience store, maybe you better think about bike parking. I know a number of people on the council are very avid bikers. Great, no problem. But to say that what you did down here in one of these apartment buildings in City Center, that you had to have a big room filled so it would be filled with bicycles. Have you been down there to look to see how many bicycles are actually there? I think it was at least 50 bicycles could be parked there out of 199 houses. And it is on page 15 that shows what it would look like if you put that 4-story building on that corner. Again, this is in a residential neighborhood, and it's changing it dramatically, unless you want to change every one of those houses around it dramatically. Maybe you do, I don't know. 45-foot building, I believe it is. Four-story, 45 feet, page 17. And then you go to general commercial. And you talk about shipping containers on page 20. I love Fred Meyer. I spend a lot of money at Fred Meyer. But they've got that damn shipping container in the parking lot, and it has been there, I swear, well more than a year. And it never moves. You know, at Halloween, they have to have extra stock that they run out and get. And when it comes to springtime, they need the extra manure and the bags of potting soil. And It never moves. It says that it can only be there no more than 90 days in a 12-month period. And not only that, but they've now taken to putting up fencing so they can put a lot of that potting soil stuff and the other things that go with the garden center out in the middle of the parking area where people who come from that side of town normally used to park. I'm not sure that that affects the required number of parking spaces there, but it sure makes it less convenient for people. And I don't know whether they have to have a permit to fence that area off or they just do it. I mean, a lot of things just get done. We used to have a furniture store down here, and we prevented stores from using what I call fishing pole signs, those big spears that go up with the hanging, waving flag, thin flag on it. That there's now a transit center down there now. But when they were there, every Friday night, about 5 o'clock, they'd go out and put their fishing pole signs out. And Sunday, when they closed, they'd take them all in, because they knew nobody from the city was going to go down and say, those are illegal signs, you're not supposed to use them. If you write these requirements, are you going to enforce them? Building setbacks. Page 20. Building setback requirements apply to all lots. That means that all of us who have already been in our houses, been in our buildings, we've gone by the requirements that have been set for the year, over the years. Now you're telling me that the people next door to me in a residential area can change that. They can go out as far as 10 feet from the sidewalk and build out there. I can't. I mean, I could, I guess, if I wanted to ruin my house and ruin the look and ruin the neighborhood. These things are going to happen over a period of time. And I challenge all of you sitting on that dais to come back here in 20 years, 25 years, and look at what you have done to the city by affecting these changes that you're being asked to effect. And if you want to know what it's going to look like, please take a trip down to Seattle and go to that beautiful area called Ballard. It used to be beautiful. Now, if you want to go to an event there and you have to park on the street, you're going to park a mile or two away and walk down because there's so much parking on the street because they haven't required a look at what is going to happen when you have people living there with cars. And fortunately or unfortunately, that's something that's reality. So we have shipping containers. Commercial properties may place a shipping container on the site no more than 90 days. Are you going to enforce it? Shipping containers may be used as a building if found to be in compliance with applicable design standards set forth in LMC 8.45. Are you kidding me? We're not talking about manufactured housing coming in and allowing that. You're talking about shipping containers are going to be allowed as structures for commercial properties. What is the town going to look like? When we did a sign ordinance, all the sign companies wanted them big, right up on the street, and make money for the companies that make the signs. And they convinced a lot of retailers that that's what they needed. And the council came and said, no, not in our town. We're not going to look like Carmel with the little arty signs above each store. but we're going to have a reasonable sign code.
All right, your 10 minutes are up for now.
Well, if somebody else wants to come and speak,
Hang on.
I'll be happy to let them.
Don't leave yet.
I'll come back.
Don't leave. So, any other public comment? Mr. Heichel, you may return.
Single family and middle housing projects, parking, page 29. The requirements are so broad, it does not actually say how many cars are going to park there. And I bring up the house across the street from the rec center again. Is that the way it's going to be? That you can park any place you want, you can pave over the whole front of the property and let the people in the back, in the adus or dadus that you put up, park in the front, and a residential area then becomes a semi-commercial area. It's like living at a motel. I don't understand why they're so broad in their approach to what you do with parking. We don't really care what you do just so you have the space that people can park. Is that the attitude? That's one of the things that destroys a community. On page 30, under multifamily parking, open carports, sheltered parking stalls, canopies, covering walkways, all of that is not considered as covering the property, reducing the amount of the building site that can be covered. It seems to me, again, very broad if you allowed virtually any kind of covering like that to be considered or not to be considered as a detriment to the runoff of rain and snow. I'll let it go at that. I just wish that the council and the staff would look more closely at what they're doing now and project that out. Look at areas like the downtown Bellevue area. Look at the areas in Seattle that have been corrupted by this idea that anything goes. I went so many years down to Ballard to see the Norwegian Independence Day parade. We had friends who participated in that. And it is a place I haven't been in 5 years because I can't walk that far from where I have to park to get down to where the parade takes place. And it's because of the lack of consideration of what you do with parking in an urban setting. We are no longer a suburban area. We are an urban area, and you better start thinking about what that means for parking in the future, because the future is here now. Thank you.
All right. Final call for any member of the public to speak on the issue. City staff, do you wish to offer clarifying information in response to the testimony provided this evening?
We do not.
Does any member of the council have a question to clarify information provided during this hearing? Council Vice President.
I did have a question about the pods. You know, like when people are doing construction projects and they rent out a pod, does this now require that you get a permit for a temporary use, or does it clarify that? Did we used to require a permit?
Yeah, so we allow shipping containers to be used if you have an active permit, specifically in commercial zones. The intent of it is to make sure that shipping containers are not in fact being used because you're not doing an addition to the building, that you're supplementing your entire operation through the use of a shipping container, that it is solely used for seasonal extra surplus, that it's used for times where you may have limited durations. That's not throughout every single year and being used as a permanent fixture in your operations. pods or the U-Haul system or
Right.
all of those are still allowed, and that's why we focus this mostly on things longer than 90 days, those aspects.
Okay, I just wanted to clarify. And so if they were using a pod and the project were to take longer than 90 days, you still don't need a permit. Just ideally,
correct.
We
Yeah.
would, you set timeframes to have some guardrails so that people don't start living in them. But I just wanted to clarify that the temporary use storage pods for, tenant improvements or remodels are okay.
Absolutely.
These are the shipping containers that, and then also just FYI, there is modular construction of shipping containers that come ready to go that do meet code. There's an entire high school around here that was literally built of shipping container modular construction. So technology, I just wanted to say that is a thing and probably why it was added to the regulation, because it's not like a what if, they actually can build those. So I just wanted to just add that for education. And then just clarify for the pod things, because I was like, oh, wait, were we supposed to have been getting permits for those the whole time?
No,
that was it for me.
Staff discussed the pods quite a bit as to how this applies, how this doesn't apply. And one clarity with the pods is one of the aspects of that business model is that you load them and then they're hauled off to a secured storage facility for a certain amount of time and potentially shipped or to and from. So that's where we saw that there was a lot of flexibility given that type of model.
Thank you.
Councilmember Mata.
I do wonder about enforcement. I think Mr. Heichel brought up some good questions. So I just want to understand, what is the process? Should there be code violations? Who's responsible for leading that charge?
Sure. So in DBS, we are very fortunate to have 2 FTEs funded for code enforcement. With the filling of both of those positions, we have had some flexible hours used so that weekend enforcement does happen, specifically around signage. Many of the concerns Mr. Heichel brought up are shared with staff. And our business community has learned that, hey, we do see what's happening on the weekends as well. But in general, the first thing that we do within code enforcement is fact-finding, and we look for voluntary compliance if there is a non-compliance. So best ways to submit for a concern or a thought that there might be a violation is through our website, and you can do it through reporting. We do offer it to be allowed anonymously. If you do also want follow-up, there is that availability. But we are very fortunate to have both of our code enforcement officers as staff to help support the enforcement.
Awesome, thank you. And for anyone listening, it's www.lynnwood.gov/report-a-code-violation.
Yes.
Thank you.
Councilmember.
Any other questions from council? Yes?
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
So on the slide about neighborhood commercial setbacks, there was a question about these 10-foot minimum street setbacks. Why do we have setbacks at all?
That's a good question. So the intent of the setback is to ensure that there's walking safety around the building. It's that's why we see 5-foot setbacks is the most common. One of the reasons we had a minimum street setback and kind of a zone we were hoping to have new buildings be constructed in is to make them a more walkable area so we don't have the parking lot in between the public sidewalk and the building and help that building come forward. Now, where this came into play with the code amendment is we do allow cottage housing in the neighborhood commercial zone as a transitional housing type, and it wouldn't be ideal to have every single cottage lined up in that building zone. So it's natural that one of them would be behind that setback. So that's why that is specifically being proposed, is that distance. Also, in the neighborhood commercial zone, it is immediately adjacent to other residential zone and residential uses. So we do recognize that there is a benefit with commercial lighting to have some separation from other neighborhood zones in addition to the buffering requirements in that. So that's kind of the basis of why. But really what we're trying to make sure is that there's a clear transition from the street to the lower intensity commercial use to the residential uses.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Seeing none, at this time, since all those wishing to speak have had an opportunity to do so, and since the City Council has had the opportunity to ask clarifying questions, it is appropriate to close the public hearing. Thank you again for joining us and participating in this public hearing. And let's, how about we will go through agenda items 11 and 12, and then we'll take a break. So we're now on to item 11, approval of minutes.
Does any council member have any changes to the minutes? If not, I move to approve the minutes of the February 17th, 2026 City Council work session, the February 18th, 2026 Finance Committee meeting, the February 23rd, 2026 City Council business meeting, and the February 25th, 2026 City Council work session.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any comments? All those in favor say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Now we'll go to the item 12, the unanimous consent agenda, and it looks like Councilmember Owings is up for that.
Does any council member wish to remove an item from the consent agenda? If not, the following will be approved by unanimous consent. A, voucher approval.
Yeah, let's pause to see if anybody wants to remove anything. Anybody want to? Okay, you're good then. All right.
Perfect. A, voucher approval. 1, approve claims in the amount of $2,570,609.08 in the period for the period of 2/16/2026 through 3/1/2026. 2, approve payroll in the amount of $1,755,385.75 dated 2/20/2026. B, authorize the mayor to sign and execute an interlocal agreement with Malik Terrace allowing the sewer bypass at Lynnwood Sewer Pump Station number 12. C, authorize the mayor to enter into and execute on the behalf of the city a contract supplement of $140,000 with RH2 Engineering and Consulting Services related to 40th Avenue Water Tank Improvement Project in an amount not to exceed the total contract value of $701,200. D, authorize an additional construction contract authority for the water tank repair project contract with T. Bailey LLC for welding repairs work associated with 40th Avenue West water tank facilities, increasing the approval contract value of $146,213 to a new total contract value not to exceed $196,213.
Very good. So, since there were no objections, the unanimous consent is approved. We will now go for a break for 7 minutes.
That's a solid number.
All right, let's keep it rolling here. Is Director Meyer on Zoom? Council Assistant? Okay. Well, then we will move on to, item 13A, the resolution, which is for the 2026 Finance Committee meeting calendar.
Yeah, as the Finance Committee Chair, I'll go ahead and chime in. Director Meyer informed us that she would not be able to be here today, but since this was mostly procedural, it's Really not a big deal. Essentially, at our last meeting, the Finance Committee members discussed moving the committee meeting dates every month, and we decided on the third Tuesday of the month. And so the procedural element is now for us to vote to adopt that new schedule. So, interim city clerk, could I get a resolution number?
2026-04.
I move to adopt Resolution 2026-04, a resolution to establish the 2026 Finance Committee meeting schedule.
Second.
You have a motion. It's a second. Council President, would you wish to speak any further on this?
No, sir.
Any other council members wish to discuss this? All those in favor of this resolution say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? Motion passes. We will go now to item 13B, which is the resolution protecting immigrant safety, constitutional rights, and community trust. And Councilmember Mata, you are the lead on this.
About a year ago or so, when a little over a year ago, when Trump started his second term, I spent a week being really, really anxious and really scared because I had saw what happened in the first term. And then I decided, after I had cried all the tears that I could cry, that I needed to put, my money where my mouth is and take action if I actually wanted to do something in the community to help people feel safer, because I had a hunch that things were going to get worse. And they did. Unfortunately, they got worse, and they are getting worse, especially for immigrants, for people of color, for women, anybody who is not, of a certain demographic. And I'm so excited about this resolution because I think that it's important that we reaffirm what we believe in as a community during a time when people are being threatened, people are scared, and people need to know that on a local level that their leaders care and are going to do everything they can to protect them, even if sometimes it's just reaffirming, what we believe in and what our values are. So I am hopeful about this. I'm excited that the mayor is already doing some amazing work to kind of take the charge on some of these. So I'm hoping that we can make this happen and pass it. So does anyone wish to speak before we make a motion on this? What's the process?
You can make a motion for the resolution if you wish, or let's get the resolution.
Okay.
Thank you.
City Clerk, do you have a resolution number?
2026-05.
2026-05. I move to adopt Resolution 2026-05, a resolution of the City of Lynnwood, Washington, reaffirming constitutional rights and the dignity and safety of immigrant and refugee residents, expressing concern regarding federal immigration enforcement practices that create fear and undermine due process, public safety, and community trust. Affirming limitations on the use of city resources consistent with state law, advancing transparent, community-oriented, and trust-based policing principles, urging the mayor to prioritize directing city staff across all departments to implement these commitments, and requesting the preparation of accessible community resources and potential future legislative actions to strengthen transparency, accountability, and public access to information.
Second.
All right, we have a motion. It's been seconded. Councilmember Mata, do you wish to speak further on this?
No, I think I've said all that needs to be said.
All right. Any other council members wish to speak on this? We'll go with Council Vice President.
I just wanted to add once again, thank you for all of the work, and to the community. Someone spoke earlier and said that they didn't understand. There's a lot of things that happened in our society and our world that I don't think that happened to you directly, but we're asked to either sympathize or understand. You might have a friend that can't have children. And so when it comes to why we're doing this and a level of understanding, it might not be something that it looks like you can understand, but it's not something that you can teach. It's a level of, really either sympathy or empathy, whatever you're born with. Racial profiling is not something that you can understand unless you're of that race. A fear that you're born with or that you're taught with as a child and you grow up is not something to understand. It's not even something that I understood as a Hispanic until I moved to Washington State. And so I just wanted to offer that additional layer of understanding for those in the community that are wondering why. It's not performative to a lot of people, and it does create for those that need this an additional layer of safety and understanding for them on what their community is and is not willing to do, and really who's there for them in this crazy time. And so that's all I wanted to add with regards to this. Thank you.
Thank you, Council President.
Thank you. And I appreciate Councilmember Mata. I know this is your first resolution, and there's a lot of work that goes into them sometimes, a lot more than you'd think. And I think you've done a stellar job of crafting something that I think the council and the city itself can be proud of. I have received concerns from the public, and I just wanted to give you an opportunity to address those concerns about potential legal issues. Can you walk us through how you resolved concerns about potential legal ramifications or legal conflicts from this resolution?
Yeah, absolutely. So I had numerous conversations with legal experts. And the first conversation that I had was with somebody who studies constitutional law, because the question that came up the most was the supremacy clause and understanding, okay, if you instruct a local law enforcement to intervene or to do excessive force, the feds have total immunity over everything. That's what people thought the supremacy clause meant, and that we would then set ourselves up for liabilities or lawsuits if we were to anyway try to hold federal officers who come into our city to a higher standard. And I learned that that's actually not what it means. Federal officers don't have full total immunity. We're seeing that across the county, especially across the country. In Minnesota, a judge has said that they can charge the man who shot Renee Good, which is a really big step. So it does clear up some of the questions around, are we going to get into any lawsuits with the federal government? And the answer is no. I've had our city attorney review this as well, and we've adapted some of the language because mainly around police enforcement, because for example, what our LPD deems as excessive force, federal enforcement officers, they may have a different definition of excessive force. They may have a different definition of what is lawful to them, may be unlawful to us. So we don't want to get into a situation where we're asking our police officers to go toe-to-toe with immigration and fight a battle that could potentially lead to a lot more harm for our community. So I'm not asking that of our police force at all, and anything that would be asking our police officers to intervene and to do things when we witness excessive force has been removed from the resolution. Instead, it's politely asking the mayor and the police chief to explain what their policies are, so that when they do get a call about ICE, when they do get a call about, somebody's been detained, the public can understand what their process is in a way that makes them feel more secure that the police is going to keep the community safe as well as keep their officers safe at the same time. So we have not set ourselves up for any legal ramifications whatsoever, period.
I really appreciate that. And just on that same note, I think you were starting to address it. There were concerns from members of the public about putting our peace officers at risk. Mm-hmm. Can you walk me through just a little bit more about how you've engaged the LPD? Yeah,
I've had so many conversations with Chief Cole, with, I don't know if it's Sergeant Zelensky, if he's a sergeant, Commander Zatilny, Deputy Commander Zatilny, and I've really tried to understand what's going through the frame of mind of a police officer when they're called to deal with federal immigration And I have a lot of empathy for them because it is really scary. You're going up against, or you're potentially putting yourself in harm's way, which they do every day, and that's really, really brave. But because there aren't a lot of clear guidelines when dealing with federal overreach or, a leader who could potentially be using, federal officers as their army, like there's not a lot of boundaries around that. So in order to keep it really, really clean, I've worked really closely with the police chief to get this to a place that they are comfortable with, that their officers are comfortable with, so that it's very, very clear that we are not asking them to go toe-to-toe with ICE should they come into our community. And they've been very clear that their job, that if there are issues in our community, the way they're going to be solved is in the courthouse, and they will bear witness, and they will do what they're best to protect themselves and protect the members of our community. But unfortunately, there's no protections from this federal overreach, so it's more of a witness and report type situation, which, I didn't really like hearing because I want to hear that they're going to go toe-to-toe and they're going to fight. And now I understand why I can't possibly ask that of them.
No, I appreciate that, and I think it's important for members of the community to be aware of all the due diligence that's been done on this. I did make a comment, in one of our early work sessions about making sure this is not performative and also not rushed. And I think you've definitely ensured that this is substantive. It actually addresses issues that vulnerable members of the community have brought up. And I want to just let you close here. Maybe there's more comments coming, but close here on that kind of follow-through. Just lay out for me and I guess the public what specific things this is asking and what those next steps that us as a council can do to help protect and kind of amplify the voices of our immigrant neighbors.
Yeah. So this resolution is really asking, I think, 3 things in particular. The first is that we are very clear on what the city policy is regarding ICE on city grounds, using city resources, things along that. There are state laws that prohibit cities from letting ICE use their properties and such like that, but not everyone is totally aware of it. So it asks that the mayor have some conversations with the directors, with the staff, so that they know what the policy is and so that they know what actions to take should they be approached by immigration officers wanting to use city property or city resources. Just because this is not something that they've probably ever encountered before, we want to make sure they know what to do. The second one is to make sure that the mayor and the police chief are having conversations about what the process is from the police side of things. So what is LPD's responsibility and roles when somebody calls about a potential abduction, when there's an abandoned vehicle because of somebody who was detained by ICE, really laying it out, I think, for the community so that people can feel a little bit better that police aren't just standing by doing nothing, because that's not the case. They have very strict guidelines that they can follow and rules, and I think it would be really helpful for that to be laid out a lot clearer internally and externally. So that's the second ask. And the third ask is that we make a more robust database of resources for our community members about what their rights are, because the biggest thing is that people don't know what to do if ICE comes to their door and wants to be let in, and maybe they have a warrant, maybe they don't. They're able to then ask these questions to actually know, oh, you don't have to open the door if they don't have a judicial warrant. You can stand your ground. You don't have to do any things if someone pulls you over. There's so many different rights that people have that because of fear, usually they don't really know. So we want people to be a little bit more prepared. And I've had great conversations with Kyle Ward from Human Services. We already have some of these resources kind of buried in our website, so I just want to make it a little bit more robust and really clearly laid it out, and then supplement that with posters, with notices around, so that everybody can access these resources without maybe having internet, because we know that not everybody has access to the city website. So it's just asking that we really dedicate some time to making that clear.
Thank you, Councilmember Mata. Mayor, are any of these asks being made of you unreasonable?
No, and actually, we're pretty much in the process of almost all 3 of these asks. Well, I should say we are in the process for all 3 of these asks. So, no, these are not unreasonable at all.
So we're in sync. Okay, I urge my colleagues to support this.
Councilmember Litwiler.
Thank you, Mayor. I don't want to belabor the point, but I think there's a couple things worth calling out. Number one, I think I would definitely recommend people who have a feeling about this resolution to actually read the draft. I think there's always going to be people who feel it does too much and others that feel it does too little. But I think if you actually read what's in here, you will see a lot of common ground in terms of protecting constitutional rights, things that, again, there should be a lot of common ground there. And I think the other thing that's worth highlighting, again, you can question, is this performative? Are we doing these things already? And I just want to call out, that's actually kind of a great thing that we can say, community-oriented policing, de-escalation. These are things that the police department has been doing for the last several years in particular, either because of Washington state law or kind of remaining at the forefront of the latest policy directions and kind of best practices that are coming out. That's why we were able to qualify for the recent grant. So I just think it's worth calling out for the community that this resolution that we're talking about here, we're fortunate to be able to say our police department, city government, city staff have already embraced a lot of these principles. I think that puts us in a very good spot. And again, if you have a strong feeling about this resolution, it's always good to take a look and read what are we really talking about. I have no problem supporting this resolution 100%.
Any other council members? Back to Council Member Mata.
So one other thing that's come up constantly when having this conversation is don't you want ICE to do their job to get criminals out of our city? And I just want to note that nothing in this has anything really to do with somebody's actual immigration status. We're not asking anybody to intervene and not do their job. This was born because of an overreach, it's not an overreach, it's instructions from ICE that were given to break the law. And I think it's really just important to reiterate that we are grounded in the Constitution, we are grounded in the law, and there are a lot of cities out there who are not doing resolutions like this. And I think that this speaks to who we are as a city, who we are as a community, and the future that we want to build here in Lynnwood. So I urge everyone to support.
Okay, any other comments? Yes? No? Okay. This is important, so I would like for this to be a roll call. Thank you.
Council Vice President Escamilla.
Yes.
Councilmember Wright.
Yes.
Council President Coelho.
Yes.
Councilmember Mata.
Yes.
Councilmember Owings.
Yes.
Councilmember Partial.
Yes.
Councilmember Litwiler.
Yes.
7 yeses, 0 noes.
Motion passes. Very good. Congratulations. So now let's go to item 13C on the agenda, which is the Lynnwood Farmers Market Progress Report. And we have Director Walters here and also Tourism and Project Manager Ryan Bush. Okay, gentlemen.
Mr. Mayor, thank you. Council, this briefing's at the request of the council president. He's been tracking our efforts, the city's efforts to explore the feasibility of a farmer's market now for quite some time. There have been developments, there have been advances since the council last heard about this when you all received a presentation from Frank Percival, the Lynnwood Chamber of Commerce Executive Director. And so it was time to get you up to speed. The bottom line is that there's still a number of unanswered questions, a number of challenges. There's also at least seen a potential pathway forward. but the timing of that is still an open question. The mayor asked me last week, well, what's a drop-dead date? By when do we need to know if this is a viable option or not? Viable either to open in time for the World Cup, which was the original vision that had been expressed, or at some other time, either later this year or next year. What we're anticipating is that some of the key questions, key factors, key elements that need to be in place that Ryan will walk us through, we'll need to answer those questions sometime in the next couple of weeks. I think for opening up a market in time for the World Cup is something that we'll know by the end of this month whether that's feasible or not. That's our current estimate. But I'm going to turn it over to Ryan now and have him walk through the details of what we've been pursuing, what we've been exploring, and what we have found to date.
Thank you, Ben. Yeah, as Ben mentioned, this presentation will give you a background of how this came about and where we're at today. And so, starting off on November 3rd, Chamber President Frank Percival brought to you all a proposal to authorize a payment for a security deposit to Sound Transit to operate a Lynnwood farmers market at the City Center Station. Frank and Council President Coelho worked very hard with Sound Transit to make this a reality, to make a farmers market a potential at this site, where after the opening of the site, there was a lot of opportunity and potential for something similar as the opening day festivities to happen again. And so that proposal from Chamber President Frank Percival included that the city be responsible for the refundable deposit and oversight. The Chamber would search for a market manager and help secure vendors and sponsors. Sound Transit would then provide the site at no cost to the city or the market manager, and then the market would be a self-sustaining market through vendor fees and sponsorships, and that those options would cover the cost of operating a market. That proposal was approved by council on November 10th, and from there on, Chamber President started rolling on trying to figure this out. At the time of the approval, there was a lot of things that we did not know, including things from Sound Transit that we didn't know either. We had no idea if there is any market managers available or had any interest in standing up a new market. We were unsure of what it would take to get vendors to a brand new market. We weren't fully aware of the realistic cost to operate a market, and we really didn't have any idea of if commuters at the City Center Station could turn into actual foot traffic that could lead to sales for these market vendors. Additionally, there's a lot of other markets in our region, and so we weren't sure if this could even compete or stand alone on its own. And markets take a lot of people to run, and so making sure there's available volunteers from our community to help make this a success was unknown. There was also Sound Transit has verbally confirmed of discounting Sound Transit advertising to help promote the event. We're still working with Sound Transit on all the details, so that's still to be confirmed. Following the approval from council, Chamber President started reaching out to his networks from the opening day festivities to try to solicit a market manager from all of his network. On December 3rd, he let the city know that on December 5th, that he let us know that there was not any available interest from market managers. Through the exhaustive search, he recommended that we consider using one of the consultants that he found through his research for the city to consider using them as a consultant to help extend that search further for a market manager. On December 8th, he notified the Sound Transit and the city that the city would be responsible for coordination, negotiation, and site operation, and help leading that search further for a market manager. This is kind of an overview of all of the things that happened from November 3rd on, not including all the way up to date. But the things that I wanted to highlight to you through all of this is that once this was approved by council, the chamber as well as the city began working on trying to find a market manager and answer those questions that were unknown. The key piece of running a market is having that market manager that knows how to find vendors and make it a success is the key piece of this project that has to be figured out. When the chamber recommended the consultant, Sarah Jensen, the city engaged with her the following day and has been working with her since really the beginning of the year. Through all of the holidays, we started working with her really at the beginning of the year to start assessing the city center station as an option for a market, and also helping us extend the search to find an operator. You can go to the next slide. Once the chamber handed off the project to the city to help determine what to do next, Ben and I decided that we wanted to keep this process going and keep trying to find a market manager, and also at the same time determine, is the city center station the best option? Are there other spots in city center that would work? Are there other organizations that are interested in potentially taking on this concept of a farmer's market? So we did engage with that consultant that the chamber president recommended. Once we started working with her at the beginning of the year, she started doing a site assessment, looking at the site and the layout that Sound Transit provided. She also started doing research on the day and the season. Sound Transit requires this to be a weekend market. So at the same time, she began researching all of the other weekend markets in our area, and there's a lot of them. And so she made recommendations on on what day and time that this is the most viable, and then also identified what it would take to really start this up, and helping us identify some pathways on how to move forward. And she's also been instrumental in helping us find a market manager. She has ran many markets in Snohomish County and the region, and so her network is pretty deep in market managers. And so one of the main responsibilities that we tasked her with is trying to help us find someone to run this market. You go to the next slide. So through our consultant's recommendations and all of her research, she kind of identified a few findings and an overall recommendation. Her recommendations included launching an 8-week smaller version of a pilot to get this going. Additionally, the timing that I mentioned, she recommended Sundays from 9 a.m. to 1. In her full report, she outlines a few other options, but based on the competitive landscape, 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. Was the most viable operating time. She also, in addition to a smaller season, recommended starting small, and primarily the reason is vendors aren't willing to go all in on a brand new market that has no guarantee of sales or foot traffic. So starting small and keeping the season shorter will help make it more attractive to vendors. And lastly, she noted that there are significant startup costs when starting a market from the ground up. And so her recommendations included keeping it small, securing a dedicated and compensated market manager, and establishing a seed budget to help reduce those early financial barriers. We'll kind of walk through all of those in our pathways. So the first option on how to move forward, which is very similar to what Chamber President proposed to you all last year, which is finding a market manager to lead this project. This is our preferred option. It's also kind of the hardest option to nail down. It would require us to identify a qualified market manager to handle all aspects of the farmers market, including recruiting vendors, sponsors, getting all of the permits from the city and Sound Transit, and also making sure they are handling all of the budget. The city would work with the manager to help coordinate with Sound Transit, and our only financial obligation would be the refundable deposit. The pros of this is there's no financial impacts to the city besides the $5,000 deposit. It requires very little staff oversight or time, as the market manager is the primary lead on all things farmers market. The city would still play a role in helping them promote it using city resources and our communication channels, but it would be a small lift. The downfall of this, and it's something that we're seeing trying to find a market manager, is that it's difficult to secure a qualified operator that's willing to stand up something completely new without any additional support or resources. Startup costs are really high when starting up a market. Our consultant put together kind of a draft budget of what it would cost to start something up, and so there's definitely some barriers to entry in launching a brand new event, especially in a short window. A few things that we have considered to help make this a viable pathway is potentially waiving special event permit fees in the first year to reduce those costs on the manager. Another option is encouraging the manager to apply for our Parks and Recreation Community Event Collaboration Grant, which is a small grant that averages about $750 or so. I think it can go up to $2,000, but that would be an opportunity for them to apply for some additional funding for operations. Option 2 is the option that our consultant recommended and outlined in her findings, which is a financially supported pilot. This would require the city to identify the market manager, similar to the option 1, but the biggest difference is that the city would provide some form of seed funding to limit those barriers to starting up a new market. The city would also still be responsible for the refundable deposit. Once you eliminate some of those barriers of cost to set up a market, the opportunity for a market manager becomes a little more attractive as we reduce those risks and those costs. Market managers are if they're using their own funding, if they don't have sponsorships, and so helping them accelerate this project with funding is what our consultant recommends, and is something that it will help get this moving quicker in the first year. Of course, the cons with this, it would require a formal agreement with the city if we are providing funds, and it would require city administration and oversight when you're adding city funds to this project. It also doesn't guarantee that it becomes self-sustaining. There still are requirements of having vendors and making sure the vendors have sales. And so it's not a guarantee that it becomes self-sustaining, but it helps limit those financial risk. Of course, with this, this does have impacts to the city budget, and it only covers a portion of those startup costs. So this was a conceptual budget that we put together. This is really just intended to show some of the things that it would take to start a farmer's market. This includes everything from starting up a website and having insurance and all of the fees, but also having restrooms at the station, having barricades and road closure signs for different parts of the site. And so once you start adding in all the startup costs, it does start adding up. And so that is why our consultant recommending having some way to reduce those costs. All of this is really subject to the time and the frequency of the market, which a market manager would be responsible for putting all of this together. But this is really just to kind of give you a high level of what it would take to stand this up from the ground up. You can go to the next slide. And so based on our consultant recommendations, this would be the estimated market revenues for a small 8-week pilot. This is based off what fees are charged at neighboring markets, and so it would be similar to our neighbors, but also a little bit reduced because it is a brand new market. And so this gives you an idea of what type of vendor fees can actually come from a market of 30 to 40 vendors. You'll notice that it says there's an estimated 50 applications, and the consultant recommended 30 to 40 vendors. What typically happens is you'll have more applications than are actually vendors. You'll also have applicants that are not willing to participate in all 8 weeks. They may want the first 3 weeks, and so you hope to have more vendor applications that you can rotate through vendors over the course of the season. This is all recommendations from our from our consultant, and this is all up to the market manager. They could choose to increase this or lower this based on however they see fit, but this will give you an idea of what funds could be generated from this. This does not also assume any sponsorship revenue. We are not 100% certain, but most likely Sound Transit will allow third-party sponsorships beyond just them being a sponsor. So there is an opportunity that the market manager could find sponsors from the community. And as Ben was mentioning, with all of this, there are still potential risks to launching a market for this year. Since we put this presentation together last week, we have had some additional updates today, and which being there is limited interest from market managers over the last week. We've talked with 3 or 4 different market managers to see if they're interested, and there is some interest. We've have been in conversation with one operator that has shared that they are very interested and will likely know within the next couple of days if that is to become a reality. If that is, some of these risks will decrease in amount, but there are still risks of launching this market this year, which really is going to rely on getting a market manager, but also that market manager being able to find vendors that will participate. Those are the 2 biggest risks of this. Vendors typically have already made their schedules for the summer by this time of year, and so getting in onto their schedule may be difficult for this year. They typically make those schedules at the very beginning of the year. With any new market, our consultant says they're really skeptical. They may only sign up for 1 week and see what happens, and so will be a risk at any point, whether it's this year or next year. And I believe I mentioned if they don't generate sales, they'll move on to a different market. The startup costs are a financial barrier. With this being at a Sound Transit site, this market manager will be required to go through their application or review period, just like how they would for a special event permit with us. Sound Transit in our most recent meeting mentioned that it could take up to 3 to 4 months for them to review an application. They are willing to work with us as fast as possible. They're willing to look at application as it comes in. It doesn't have to be a fully 100% complete application. As a market manager has information, they can apply as they have it, which is great. We'll hopefully expedite that. But that they are stating that their typical turnaround time is 3 to 4 months. If that is the case, a World Cup may be unlikely, a World Cup start date unlikely, but doesn't mean that maybe it's a late season market, more of an August, September type of market is still possible. And yeah, there's still a few details to be worked out with Sound Transit that we are working through. And so currently our next steps, we're going to continue outreaching to market managers. We have been working with our boards and commissions to make sure they get it out to their community members. We've been working with our parks department to make sure they share it out with their attendees. And we're really just trying to expand that search as far as possible to see if there is any market managers that are interested or organizations that are interested. And we'll continue to do that, and hopefully we'll have something in the coming weeks. We also, Sound Transit does require insurance liability requirements for that market manager. We are working with our city clerk to ensure that there are no additional requirements beyond what Sound Transit will require that we need to inform a market manager about. And that's where we are at. We're here today to kind of check your interest in continuing to pursue this. We wanted to bring up the option of funding a pilot so you were aware of what it would take to make this a reality this year. And so that is totally open for debate and questions, but we're happy to answer any questions of where we're at currently.
Thanks. Ryan, I'll just emphasize, so next couple of weeks, we need to determine if there's a viable market manager available within a short period of time remaining. We need to also see if Sound Transit can provide us an expedited review that is shorter than 3 to 4 months. Whether or not that's possible is unknown, but I've already started an inquiry. Those two factors will tell us pretty quickly in the next few weeks whether or not a farmers market in time for World Cup is viable at the Lynnwood City Center light rail station. I want to note that simultaneous to all of this, the Public Facilities District is in the process of organizing a market during the time of the World Cup. By early information, it'll be more of a craft market. But one of the staff that works at the PFD used to run the Kirkland Farmers Market. So there is that coinciding effort that I wanted to make sure Council was aware of.
Great, thank you. Any questions from council members? Was that a hand? Or okay, Council Vice President.
I don't have any questions, but I do have some comments. We're broke, but it doesn't seem like a lot of money. And I'm curious, it's like we can't put an official ad out, but you need to have this role kind of like somebody in mind for it before we can move forward. Is that where we're at?
No,
do we have like an official solicitation out?
No, given the time that an official like advertisement and basically almost like an RFP, we didn't have time for that. So based upon the advice of our consultant and on her own efforts, she's well known and well connected in the farmers market community in the region. And as Ryan identified. We did a lot of outreach through our commissions. It's actually through that we identified this potential market manager. And so the emphasis was on efficiency and speed rather than on process.
Well, no, that's good. I mean, I know that it was like fast and furious, but I wonder if we went through an official recruitment process and put one out, what I would think is that people would be dying to run the Lynnwood Light Rail Farmers Market. And even if they signed up for one, if I was a vendor and I had signed up for one that wasn't at an as popular spot or off of the corridor, like down in Edmonds where you need to get down to, I'd cancel my contract with the, whatever little farmer's market and go get a spot at the Lynnwood one. So honestly, I feel like people have been wanting and waiting for this in Lynnwood for so long that I don't see filling that position as a concern once we decide. And then there's official networks. This is just through unofficial channels, but there are like farmer market networks in Seattle where you can just go and put jobs to get there. We have a fruit stand up on 44th across from Safeway. We have one over by Yaya's, and then we have the one that we just moved at the corner from the light rail over to by Ember. That's not even like a mile radius. So that tells me we have enough people in our city center that are buying fruit. I'm not worried at all about the success of this and whatnot. If anything, I'm just kind of, again, commenting, and it just seems that our biggest concerns won't be a concern anymore once we decide, because this is something that the community's wanted for so long. And obviously, we have proof that the need in the community is there to keep 3 businesses open every single day. So that's all I got. Thank you.
Council President.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Director. Thank you, Ryan Bush, for the presentation. I really appreciate the update for everybody. I know I mentioned it during last October's discussion about the farmers market that it was still early days, so hold your enthusiasm. But actually, keep your enthusiasm. I'm in the same boat as the Vice President here. I still have high hopes for this. I do get concerned, obviously, with timing and the process. And there are, of course, unknowns, and those are things that we would learn through a pilot. That's the whole purpose of a pilot, is to gather information. And so I just had a few questions along those lines. If a lot of the questions revolving around this farmer's market are just logistics and how to, have some data to give to market managers to entice the really good ones to come up, because to my understanding, the baseline for a very successful market is just having a fantastic market manager. Has there been any thought to maybe doing just a very limited pilot this year, maybe 1 or 2 weekends as kind of a demonstration to reaffirm what we saw at the summer night market at the grand opening of the light rail station, figure out the parking issues, figure out how to do the loading, unloading, and get all those questions answered and show this is what your sales volume might be? Has that been just a thought at all so far?
I'll let Ryan answer that relative to the professional advice that we got from our consultant who's operated successfully 3 farmers markets here in Snohomish County. Perhaps you could share some of her thoughts on that.
While we have been looking for a market manager, our consultant simultaneously put together a ton of questions and logistic planning with Sound Transit. We worked with Sound Transit to answer all of those questions. When I tell you, it was probably like 40 to 50 questions of just like logistics of like event day questions. Sound Transit was super great of answering all of them. From that, we have been using that to help have discussions with market managers, kind of that hard planning session. While there's still planning to be done, a lot of that load is taken off a little bit from our consultant already. And so that's been helpful working with market managers that are showing interest, that some of that work has already been done. So when they come in, it's really, they can hit the ground running. That's been really helpful. And Same with the time frame with when we talk to market managers. We tell them our consultant's recommending an 8-week pilot, but if this is something you really want to do, this becomes your event, and you're able to do and construct this to what sees fit for your market. And some of them have came back and said, would want to do a 4-week market to start off, and with the option to extend. So those are all on the table and being discussed. Where it's just kind of waiting for that one market manager to say, I'm ready to take the next step and start doing this.
That's really interesting. Among the information you compiled from your consultant, did they ever talk about sales volumes? Because, I mean, it's not just something that we're doing for the public. It also generates sales tax revenue. And I kind of wonder about the ROI for the city itself if we're putting money in to kind of incentivize and get this off the ground. Is there an automatic return on investment just by the fact that we're doing commerce?
Well, the short answer, of course, is yes, but how much, I don't know yet. That's a question we can pose to Sarah, our consultant.
Okay, and just to go back there for a moment to the seed money, what was that kind of preliminary, I know it was just for an example, but what was that kind of ask we were looking at beyond that $5,000 refundable deposit?
Well, in the example here, it's $2,000 that would go towards the some of the expenses you see there. You can see that there's a big one right there, that it's got a wide margin, restrooms. Those are one of the key details still to be worked out with Sound Transit. How many porta potties would they require? That's probably one of the biggest cost drivers in this whole thing. There's been several questions related to security. At this point, based upon farmer markets elsewhere, there's generally not needed a specific dedicated security for a farmer's market. We'll have to see what Sound Transit may require. All of this is new for them. And I do appreciate the time and effort that they've provided us to date. So that's the primary amount and purpose. We've also talked about some other incentives. A few of them Ryan mentioned earlier, like waiver of special event fees. We also have the Parks Department grant. This, at least on the surface, after review with our colleagues at Parks, that a farmer's market appears to be a qualifying candidate or applicant for that grant source. That's, a small amount. I think it's less than $1,000, but it's something. And so that could be another opportunity there. I do want to note, though, yes, I would agree that on the surface, these amounts seem modest. However, I just finished a budget exercise last week where I pretty much stripped the budget for DBS down to the bare minimum in order to still try and advance some of the policies and policy priorities of the mayor and the city council. So could we do something like this? Yes, but we're down to these kind of numbers in terms of what's left in the budget at this point.
I do appreciate you making that known. I know this is a challenging time, and we all have our priorities and things we want to do and dreams, but sometimes the math has to math. So,
yeah.
I'll leave it to my colleagues to answer more questions. I have another comment to make, but I'll save it.
Councilmember Mata.
My question's for my colleagues, actually. When this farmers market conversation came up, it was approved under the impression that the chamber would handle the market and the organization. Like, it wouldn't come onto the executive or the council in order to handle it. So if you had known, I wasn't here then, if you had known then that it would fall onto the council and the city staff in order to move this forward, given the moment we are living in with the budget, with everything else that's going on, would you still have approved it and moved forward with it?
I can speak to what I would have done. So it was always going to be handed to the city. I think the only difference was that, and it was always pitched to us that they would assist in the recruitment. I think that what happened was that Mr. Percival just wasn't successful at the time in December, didn't have the capacity, so it got handed back to us. But the original, what was told to us was that it would always, there would be a handoff point to the city, but that it would pay for its own salary for the market manager. The market would pay for the market manager's salary. So that is, we voted on the $5,000 expense with, okay, let's do the research, let's see if we can get a marketing manager and what they think about the viability and the spot and with their expertise. And so now they've pulled in the consultant and they're giving us that update. But there was always going to be a handoff to the city to run it. We were just hoping that it was going to basically pay for itself. But on the back end, we were always going to own it administratively.
Got it.
Correct me if I'm wrong, colleagues.
I mean, I can speak for myself. I think it's fair to say it was a little confusing. I think it was fair to say there were a lot of questions. And I think it was fair to say that everybody wanted to say yes, but nobody wanted to kick it off. And so we kicked it off, and some of the challenges have always been playing telephone with Sound Transit. They've been amazing partners, but it has been like a challenge to sometimes go back and forth. You might have one question, and it might take forever just to get that answer. That's not always been the case, but it's just been challenging doing these kind of interjurisdictional partnerships and having too many cooks in the kitchen, maybe. Now that we've kind of consolidated the information gathering, and I think Ryan Bush has just done a fantastic job of just taking charge of this and moving forward. I mean, the amount of progress we've made in just since January has been great. But again, there are those timelines. We always knew there was going to be a time crunch, and Frank and I were, frankly, a little frustrated just at how long things were taking last year to get the process moving forward. And so that ask last year was just to see if the council would itself fund a refundable security deposit with leftover travel funds. And I'm really appreciative that we got that moving. I know it's been challenging, though, with the handoff and everything. But yes, I would still have done it today, absolutely. I think everybody in our community wants it. You see the people who are coming and flooding into the streets on Fair and 44th, and they want this type of engagement. They want this kind of community event. They were there at the grand opening of the light rail station. If you didn't get a chance to go, you should have seen it. It was something else to see it in our community. Nobody could believe it. Even the vendors we talked to couldn't believe it. And so I know it's possible. It's just a matter of making sure that we do this right. And I guess, honestly, that's my main concern at this point is, when you open a small business, sometimes the first impression is the last impression, if it's not a good one. And so I want to make sure when we're muscling into the farmers market scene that we're making a splash. And my only concern with the pilot project is that people may come and be disappointed. Not that that would happen, but there's that risk if it is rushed, if we're not able to get high-quality vendors or the most, best qualified market manager to really muscle into this scene, we could be compromising our own event here. And that's not to put like a cold towel on this whole thing, but that's kind of my thought at this moment. We really wanted to try and hit FIFA World Cup. There's a lot of synergies this year that would have made 2026 a great year to start the market, and maybe this market manager has a great idea, and I look forward to hearing their ideas hopefully in the coming weeks. But that's where my head's at this point is if we're going to do it, I want to make sure we're doing it right and we're heavily supporting it, because once it gets going, it'll go. That machine will run.
That answers my question. I think I would love a farmer's market in Lynnwood. I think it's great. I think the option one that you've provided, I think it's important to note that because our stake in it is just the $5,000 refundable deposit, the market manager is maintaining all of the additional revenue for operating expenses and compensation. So that estimated market revenue on slide 11, we're not seeing any of that because that's going directly to the market manager. So all we will see is in terms of ROI is potentially the sales tax, community building, all of that, which I think is great. I would just pose the question of vendor interest and exploration, because if we're having a small market, 30 to 40 vendors, we want to curate it in a way that has the wide mix. So we have to be a little bit more selective in terms of the vendors. So I would see if we could do a vendor interest form or something. Like, do you have, just so that we can gauge, because between the markets that are in Snohomish County, in Edmonds, in Ballard, you see a lot of the same people, and they're booked up. So I would just want to make sure before we try to hit some dates that we have vendors that we're interested in. So food, farms, crafts, not just, a craft market to then compete with the PFD. It would be really important that this is like a farmer's market. Yeah.
Councilmember Lutweiler.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you for the presentation. I'm going to start off with a tangent because we've got our Public Works Department over there patiently waiting. My tangent is we've got really smart, qualified people working for the city. They did a great job presenting and shared their credentials, which is what got me thinking about this. And we've got great people in the DBS in every department. So I have no concern that our city staff can do a phenomenal job with these types of things. The city does very complex projects all the time. That's not to kind of marginalize the concerns that the Director Walters talked through on the budget and all of that, but I'm just saying that's where I start from, is we have exceptional people working for the city doing complex projects all the time, and the World Cup to me was always a stretch goal. And I look at this as, what we're asking you to, what we're trying to work together on is starting a new Lynnwood tradition, a new institution for the community. We do it right, and in 20 years, no one's going to remember any of us. They're not going to remember it took us an extra, couple months here and there. It's just going to be this great institution that they kind of just think it was always here, and they start to take for granted. And Ryan can be there telling them the war stories of what it took to get it going. So that's where I come from. Is that's what we're trying to build. I'm not concerned that we maybe can't hit the World Cup. I think what you're looking for is kind of a sense of commitment from the council, kind of that larger direction, vision. We've got, in addition to you're going to look for an exceptional market manager who can help with all of these logistics, so I won't get into all of that. Certainly, I share the commitment to get this off the ground. In the past, we had carved out some of our travel and education fund from the council. I remain on board with dedicating all of my money to help support this. My question is, what is the season that the market manager has talked about? Because we know the start date is in flux, but if it started, whenever, what's the end date that they say, this is when we think it's time to close it down each year?
Yeah, most markets around here run Mother's Day to October-ish. That's usually pretty much always the starting point is always Mother's Day, and the end date really depends on the season. But I think a good rule of thumb is September is when you would see it. I think when we were thinking of an 8-week pilot, we were thinking something, if we can't hit World Cup, it could be July to August timeframe. It hits that peak summer month. And see what happens from there. But most markets around here are running Mother's Day to October.
Great. And kind of one of the reasons I was thinking about that is as you work, hopefully you get a clear sense from the council that this remains a commitment, and we want to work with the DBS team and all city staff to make this work, whatever that means in terms of balancing other priorities, and maybe it takes a little bit longer, again, mindful of all of the concerns that Director Walters shared and other departments are going through. I'm just considering, we've got the Fair on 44th, just throwing that out there, of that could also be, if you haven't already looked at it, maybe that's a way to kind of get this market manager and some other vendors, give them another way of seeing what it's like doing business in Lynnwood and gaining some insight, kind of like a pilot program, and building out Fair and 44th, kind of what they're trying to do there. But I'll just leave it at, I remain committed to it. I think this will be something that the community will really be grateful that we worked through the little hiccups and roadblocks that we knew would be encountered, and having this be a great thing to do with their families in the future. Thank you.
Council President, I think.
I guess I think Councilmember Leutweiler hit most of the points here. And just to answer Councilmember Mata, the market manager is going to be the one who's doing all those technical details, and that's why it's made this whole exercise kind of frustrating. There's so many details that we need the market manager to answer. So I think we'll know a lot more soon. I just want to follow up. I sent you guys the leadership memo last week, and I just want to hear back from you. Is this something you're interested in? Because this was a council-initiated project. And if we want this momentum to carry forward, we just need to make it very clear. So those of you who have not spoken, is this something you want us to keep pursuing this year?
Yes. The only thing I would add is my concern also is the financial aspect, considering we're in a financial crisis. And but yeah, I've always wanted a farmer's market here since I was a kid. So all green lights over here.
I just wanted to, I was going to ask to speak again because I was thinking the same thing. I too would forego at least half of my travel expenses for this endeavor as well. And not only that, what community event do we have that's this cheap to get off the ground? Matter of fact, I would forego fare on half of fare on 44th for something like this. I mean, it's known and people come and they love it, but I can't tell you how many people then comment like, but we're like, there's no food, or but there's no, like, they think it's something else. They still love and come, and it's become bigger and better every year. But we don't have that parade. We don't have the tree lighting. We don't have a community event. And I see something like this, and I'm like, this is such a, not expensive way to start a tradition here. And so I, too, would be willing to forego half of my travel expenses, and or let's look at the 44th budget and see where we can retool a few little things to make this happen. Thanks.
Great. Councilmember Parshall.
Thank you. I do think this is such a unique opportunity, and part of the reason it's so exciting is because of the location. This is something nobody else in Snohomish County obviously will be doing, since we are the only location in Snohomish County with a light rail station at this point. So I think there's a lot of curiosity on the part of Sound Transit, like what this, I think they see it as a little bit of a pilot project as well. I was telling Tourism Project Manager Bush earlier, I don't want to say like they're giddy about it, but they're interested. They're curious how this is going to go, because I think they would like to activate other stations within their network possibly in ways, and see if this is a way to utilize other spaces that they have, and they have a lot of spaces. So we could really become known for that. It's an exciting potential of, hey, come to the end of the light rail line in Lynnwood and check out our new farmers market. And I really appreciate Councilmember Leutweiler's perspective on that as well. Like in 20 years, nobody will remember all these discussions. Maybe they'll just remember that there's been a farmers market in Lynnwood for 20 years, and you could take the light rail to get there. So yeah, I think you're getting a good round of enthusiasm from all council members to move forward and explore the possibilities here. Hopefully we can get that market manager done and start taking steps forward and see what the best way is to really sustain this long term.
All right. Councilmember Wright.
Yes, I agree with my colleagues. I think it would be really great to have this farmers market in our backyard. Walking distance for me. When my family moved here, we lived in Redmond, so we were very accustomed to the Redmond one, the Kirkland one, even the one in Woodinville. But to have one up here at the Transit Center is very amazing. I I love Fair on 44th, though, so, but I definitely am aboard with this.
Council President?
Yeah, I'll just close with I've heard some offers of financial support. So in my next email to the council, I will have y'all email SD any funds that have been allocated to you that you'd be willing to pitch in. And maybe we can pull a little bit of money together and see if we can pull this off. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Council President and Council. I hear that you would like us to keep pursuing this and keep you updated. And so that's what we'll do. And when there's some key decision points, we'll come back to the mayor and to you and let you know what those are.
Great. Question for Director Walters. How much did the consultant cost?
Currently, the consultant's under a $2,000 agreement. And so you did not see that up on the board. So that's money that we've already expended. She's been very frugal and efficient in her time. I think we're under $1,000 spent. So we still have some more time with her. She's been really an impressive person to work with and has been really helpful in trying to guide us on a realistic path forward that can also be successful. But the mayor's correct. We currently have already spent how much at this point?
I think we're just shy of 1,000 so far.
Just shy of $1,000 on our consultant.
Very good. Thank you. Anyone want to make a motion to extend the meeting?
I move to extend the meeting to the end of the agenda.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed besides myself? All right. Very good. Okay, my computer has died, but we're on to the last item, I do believe, which is the staff presentation on the wastewater treatment plant. Oh. No, I'm good. So in front of us, we have wastewater treatment manager Ishan Shirikani, Public Works Director Jared Bond, and wastewater treatment plant supervisor. It's late. I'm sorry, it's late.
Tanner Boyle.
Yes, thank you. Oh, thanks. Yeah, I'm okay. This is the last item. All right, so let's have the staff presentation. Thank you.
Good evening, and thank you. Just looking at the time, I want to be considerate of everybody's time here. We may get the condensed version for you.
You have till whenever.
Okay.
It's like baseball. It could go on forever if you want.
Yes. Training soon. Well, and before I jump right in, I want to say that tomorrow is my 1 year in this role as director. And thank you. And I bring that up because I want to extend my support to everybody that has helped me be successful in my first year on this role. It's very meaningful. I love my job. It's really hard, but it's a great job. So anyways, there you go. Jumping right in, most of you know me. This is my amazing team. I thought we'd go over some quick introductions, a little professional history. We have new council members who maybe haven't heard what we're about to say tonight, too. So again, apologies to those who have already heard some of what we're going to say. Really quickly, for me, I've got 27 years working with the city of Lynnwood. I do have degrees in environmental policy and planning. With the focus of water quality, I've got a master's degree in public administration. I've been working in water quality for my entire career, so all 27 years. For the last 8 years, I've been managing our utilities, including the wastewater treatment plant. And in 2025, last year, the city conducted the National Community Survey, and 79% of our sewer customers rated our utility service as excellent. So I'm very proud of that. And I'm proud of the good work we do to run our utilities. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Hassan next, and then he'll turn it over to Tanner to introduce himself.
Hello, everyone. My name is Hassan Shirikani. I've been with the city for 12 years now, 7 years of which I've mostly worked on wastewater treatment plant projects. And through these years, I developed so much passion for wastewater infrastructure that I went back to school to get a master's degree in infrastructure management and planning at University of Washington. And currently, I work as the wastewater treatment plant manager, and I'm the project manager of this project. Pleased to be here. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. I'm Tanner Boyle. I'm the supervisor for the wastewater treatment plant. I've been with the city for a little over 12 years now. I actually started as seasonal for the Parks Department and have worked my way up. I got to the lab at the wastewater treatment plant, 11 years ago, and I worked that position for 9 years, developing a love for wastewater and just studying all the time. And I actually got my Operator 4 certificate, I think 4 years ago now, and I became the supervisor about 2 years ago. And yeah, it's a great time, so thanks.
We definitely have a great team. Next slide. So tonight we're going to go over project background, project purpose, benefits, timeline, planning process, delivery strategy, current status of the project, what to expect next, and then at the very end, hopefully there's still time for some questions if you have them. As you will hear us say throughout our presentation tonight, this project still is in the planning phase. We know that the current plant is near the end of its service life. We also know that we have an obligation to our community and to the City of Edmonds to treat sewer in an environmentally and fiscally responsible way, and we cannot meet this obligation with the current facility much longer. Based on the work done so far, making improvements to the current facility has been the preferred alternative. What those improvements are and how they will be incorporated into this existing facility is not yet decided. In this presentation, you will hear about the decision process we are following, where we are at currently, and what is coming. Throughout this project, we are committed to conducting ourselves in a transparent and professional manner. This will include continued opportunities for community engagement, ongoing collaboration with Edmonds staff, and, of course, being responsive to our elected officials. Next slide. So here's a graphic of our sewer system. As you heard last week when I was here with Nick, we have a large sewer collection system as well as a treatment facility. The collection system comprises 105 miles of sewer main, 7 pump stations with 6 miles of force main. We have about 12,000 sewer connections in Lynnwood. I'm not sure of the number of connections in the Edmonds area, though. But as you can see on this map here, our system works holistically. The plant receives sewer, and the collection system collects and transports it to the plant for treatment. A quick bit of history on this. The first action that the city took after it incorporated was to create the sewer system and the treatment plant. They formed in 1959 and immediately sold municipal bonds to design and pay for the system, which then opened in 1962. So it was definitely the foresight of our founding fathers that saw the system and the need for it. With that, I'm going to turn this over to Hassan for the next part of our presentation.
Thank you, Jared. Speaking of the history, next slide, please. I'm going to give you a little bit of history about the treatment plant, how our journey has been since the beginning to present. Our treatment plant was built in 1962 to handle a much smaller population and less stringent regulations. This was 10 years before the Clean Water Act. The Clean Water Act of 1972 required all wastewater treatment plants in the U.S. owned by the municipalities to adopt secondary treatment processes that removed microscopic organics, which our plant wasn't designed for. So Lynnwood plant went through 2 major upgrades, one in 1984, one in 1989, to add those processes, and it continued operating reliably for almost 3 decades with no major improvements. However, the facility is now more than 60 years old, well beyond the typical service life of a major structural, electrical, and mechanical system. while the plant continues to function, we're increasingly operating infrastructure that was never intended to last this long without comprehensive improvements. Next slide, please. And this is an aerial of the current plan. The diagram below actually shows how our processes work. If you follow the arrow on the right side of the diagram, it shows you how effluent actually enters the wastewater treatment plant. And with the force of gravity, it flows down to the primary clarifiers. And then it goes through the plant pump station. And it gets pumped back up to the aeration basins, which is at a higher elevation up the hill. And from there, it goes to the secondary clarifiers, gets the secondary treatment, and then it flows with gravity down to disinfection and gets disinfected before it's discharged into the Puget Sound. Obviously, this is not the best way of setting up a wastewater treatment plant because you can see how energy is not really conserved. So one of the main goals we're trying to do with this project is to kind of improve the hydraulic profile of the existing plant. And as you can see, there's not a lot of land available around us to develop. But over the years, the city acquired 4 properties adjacent to the existing buildings, which 2 of those properties were considered when we were developing the facility plan to be used for the new wastewater treatment plant. This facility is an operational facility. It has to be operational 24/7. So in order to improve it, we can't just simply shut it down and rebuild it. So there's a little bit of land required so we can actually build a portion of this treatment plant, test it, commission it, and then that allows us to decommission the existing facilities and kind of move our way down to the bottom of the hill and fix everything. Next slide, please. But why action is required now? This diagram on the screen shows the typical life cycle of a wastewater treatment facility. In the early years, as you can see, performance is stable, risk is low, maintenance is predictable, and the cost of O&M is also low as equipment and structures are in good condition. But as facilities age, deterioration accelerates. Mechanical systems wear out, structural components reach the end of their intended design life. Electrical and control systems become obsolete, and maintenance becomes more reactive rather than preventive. This is the phase we're in today. Our solids handling was shut down in April 2024, and since then we've been relying on an interim sludge hauling operation. Department of Ecology has allowed us to haul as long as we have a plan to build a new solids handling system. But these systems are not standalone units. They are interconnected with the rest of the processes, and there are several other critical components that are aging and experiencing deterioration, such as headworks and disinfection systems that suffer from lack of redundancy and have experienced reduced functionality over time. Next slide, please. In addition to aging infrastructure, evolving regulatory requirements are a major driver for a change in our system. Regulations are not static. They continuously advance in response to new science, environmental priorities, and public health protections. These regulatory and permitting requirements serve as guiding principles and controlling agents that shape a significant portion of the upgrades decisions. Our original facility was built under the Washington Water Pollution Control Act framework, and then following the Federal Clean Water Act, the National Pollutant Discharge Elimination System, which we call NPDES. The requirement of NPDES established more stringent performance standards. More recently, the Washington Department of Ecology Puget Sound nutrient reduction requirements have introduced additional expectations for nitrogen removal. Looking ahead in the future, emerging contaminants such as PFOA and PFAS and future water quality standards will also continue to raise the bar. Older facilities were not designed to meet today's regulatory performance levels. Maintaining the status quo or delaying proactive investments carries real consequences like compliance violations, fines and enforcement actions, emergency repairs at significantly higher costs, and so on. Next slide, please. So we talked about aging infrastructure and regulatory requirements. One of the key goals of our planning process was to take a holistic view of all the factors that could impact future performance of our needs. So we can avoid having to reconstruct or reinvest in a short period of time. One of these factors is capacity in terms of how much flow we can accept over the next planning horizon and how much we can treat, because that also impacts the sizing, process configuration, and our permit limits. Our facility plan shows that the plant is not yet at its permitted capacity, but current flows are already approaching those limits. This means that in the coming years, we'll likely need additional capacity. From a planning perspective, this presents a strategic opportunity to integrate capacity into design, because we only get one time of planning for long term. So we have the aging infrastructure, we have the regulatory requirements. So we took this as an opportunity to include what we need in terms of capacity in the future. Next slide, please. So recognizing where we are in this life cycle curve, the next question becomes, how do we approach planning before reaching that critical point? We started planning for this in 2020 with taking a comprehensive look at the plant's condition, existing condition, and future needs. To do that, we engaged a consultant to conduct a facility plan. Since then, we have updated the general sewer plan in 2024, completed the facility plan, and had it approved by the Department of Ecology as an appendix to the general sewer plan, engaged an independent consulting firm to review the recommendations in the facility plan as they are proposed, and kind of looking into the risks and opportunities of implementing those recommendations as they are in the facility plan. During this time, we also reached out to other cities to learn about their experiences and processes. We also reached out to some environmental agencies like Fish and Wildlife and tribes to ask about their input about the proposed projects. We also engaged City of Edmonds staff regarding the project and interlocal agreement that we have. With this, I'll pass it over to Jared so he can speak to alternatives analysis.
Next slide. Speaking of alternatives analysis, as part of the facility plan and general sewer plan, 3 alternatives were evaluated. First, improving and upgrading the existing facility. Second, diverting flows to a regional treatment system. And third, construct a new treatment plant at an off-site location. These alternatives were evaluated at a conceptual level, matching the requirements for the general sewer plan and in line with ecology's guidelines. As a project progresses, it is prudent to revisit assumptions and to assure that they're still relevant and account for any changes in regulations, technology, market conditions, property acquisitions. As these were evaluated 5 years ago, as you can see, as part of our current work, which is the BODR, Basis of Design Report, and in response to community feedback, we decided to revisit these alternatives, which we are currently working with our engineer on scoping, so I don't have a whole lot more details right now because we're getting there.
So next slide, please. With this slide, I want to walk you through our design process. In November 2025, we selected Hazen & Sawyer as the most qualified firm, actually one of the best firms in the country, to provide us with engineering services to design this work. The first phase of this process is, like Jared said, the basis of design, which you see on the screen. It lays the foundation for the rest of the work before we can actually get to the design. This is a 1-year process to collect data on existing flows and asset conditions, evaluate treatment processes and examine unit processes, construction phasing, and environmental needs to define and refine the key elements of the improvements before we can actually design this project. The output of this phase is the basis of design report, which will guide designing processes and technology selection, identify high-level layout and treatment processes, and construction phasing, and provide updated costs and schedule estimates for design and construction. Next slide, please. The big question is, how do we deliver such a complex project? Traditionally, design bid build is used in many public projects, and it usually works best when the project scope is clearly defined and design can be completed before construction. This is an effective delivery method for new pipelines, road improvements, pump stations, and facilities that have been designed and built the same way over and over again. As you can see on the screen, design bid build is on the left side. With design bid build, we have to hire a designer, complete design, and designer walks away. We hire a contractor based on their lowest price, and we have a contractual obligation with the contractor. Next slide, please. Wastewater treatment plant upgrades presents a very different set of challenges. The biggest challenge is that the facility needs to remain fully operational as improvements are happening. Like the picture I have on the screen, it's like building a car, fixing a car as you're driving it. It's pretty hard. It involves complex tie-ins, the need to coordinate temporary systems and specific construction strategies that makes it difficult to fully define every construction detail before the work begins. The good news is the industry offers other delivery methods that can be used for such complex projects. We evaluated these alternative methods and determined that GCCM, General Contractor Construction Management approach, provides significant advantages. Next slide, please. The GCCM allows us to select the contractor based on their qualifications and experience prior to their fees, and this removes the risks of low-quality, low-bid contractors. It also allows us to bring the contractor on board during design to benefit from their early input on design and make sure design reflects the realities of construction on an operating plant. In addition to that, GCCM allows us to refine cost and a schedule during design and establish a guaranteed maximum price once design reaches significant maturity. So as we go, we develop cost in real time, and we can see how much the project is going to cost us at every point of the project, so we can make adjustments before design is completed, rather than just being surprised in design build projects where you end up with a certain price tag, and we're in a situation that we have to build it. There's no going back. With GCCM, we have the flexibility of refining design and cost as we go.
Next slide, please. So at this point, I'd like to talk about what our relationship with the City of Edmonds is like. We do have an interlocal service agreement with them. And let me open this up by saying Edmonds has been a true partner with us for over 60 years. The relationship has been and continues to be mutually beneficial. City of Lynnwood is committed to continuing this collaborative partnership for a very long time, and hope that Edmonds continues to support the work we are doing and the services that we are providing. That being said, the first agreement with Edmonds was executed in 1965. So we have been serving sewer there for over 60 years. Our current agreement was developed in 1982 with minor amendments in 1987 and 1989. There's two parts to that agreement. The first is the actual cost to treat, and the second is the contribution for capital upkeep and maintenance of the facility. So the cost to treat reflects actual operational costs based on the amount of sewage coming into the plant from Edmonds. So that's going to change year to year based on labor, materials, chemicals, everything that we do, but it's an actual cost to treat. The second part, capital contribution. Edmonds right now is about 11.5% of what we pay for equipment and facilities costs. That was determined in the 80s, and that's what it's been ever since. So what that goes for is if we have to replace a pump or other expensive equipment, if a building needs repair or even replacement, facility items needed to continue to operate, again, Edmonds' share of that is 11.5% currently. But obviously this is 1982, this agreement, so it's old. And we're working now with Edmonds, along with a consultant, to help us freshen it up. What the future of this looks like, we're leaning towards, I mean, none of this is set, so grain of salt, but probably 3 parts. The first will be, again, the cost to operate, which will capture the actual cost to treat the sewer coming in. Right now, even though it's an old agreement, it works well. And neither one of our agencies see the need to really change that substantively. A second part of this could be what Edmonds' portion of the major upgrade project is, assuming we continue to partner with them to treat their sewer. So what will that be for this large project? And then once we get towards the end, we'll probably look at what that ongoing capital share is after the facility is completed. Like I said, right now that's 11.5%, but what does the future have in store? So it's probably best to break this up into a couple different, more manageable chunks. We do want to make sure that it is an equitable share. Next slide. Talk about community engagement. So since December, we have participated in 4 public meetings, 3 hosted by the city of Lynnwood at the treatment plant itself, including a facility tour, and 1 hosted at the Meadowdale Community Club. These meetings have been extremely valuable. They've helped us better understand community perspectives and concerns regarding the proposed improvements. During our outreach, there were a few items of concern that we heard, and those included our acquisition of the 2 residential properties at the top of the driveway, alternative locations for the facility, our communication with Edmonds regarding the project, what they knew and when, and the SEPA process and environmental review. Last week, this team gave a presentation to the Edmonds City Council, and during that presentation, we addressed these concerns directly. Next slide. What to expect this year in 2026? On the technical side, the first part, as San stated, we are working on the basis of design report, which means we're having monthly workshops with our engineers and our technical team. We have invited Edmonds to be a part of those as well. We are having more frequent work team meetings, though. The workshops are big chunk of time where we all get in a room and hash it out, but we are having regular weekly meetings as well. We are planning for the design and environmental process. That will likely be coming, well, that will be coming next year. As I stated when I was down at Edmonds presenting, that we really need to proceed with that basis of design report so we know what we're actually building before we can really assess what the environmental impacts of them are. And as I stated earlier, Edmonds staff is partnering with us throughout this technical process. On the community engagement side, we will continue to engage the community at key touch points. Right now, like I said, we've had 4 meetings. We've met with Edmonds Council. Here we are tonight. It is probably going to be a couple more months before we re-engage these again, because we have a lot of work to do behind the scenes before we have new information to report out. But we are committed to implementing our public involvement plan and regularly update our project website as new information unfolds. And also, March 27th, we'll be hosting our tour for council members. So for those that signed up and want to come down, For those that have already done it, want to do it again, we look forward to hosting you. Next slide. And project schedule. I'd like to reiterate that this is a rough project schedule. These things, especially with a project of this size, tend to move around. They have a life of their own, and so it's really important to be flexible throughout. But as you can see, some key touch points, including the environmental review starting next year. A lot of people are saying that this will be a 10-year construction project. I would say that that's not exactly accurate. Construction really shouldn't take 10 years. I'd say, again, don't quote me on this, but it's more likely in the 4 to 6 years range. You can kind of see it on here. But even during that time, not all of it will entail heavy construction, earth movement, so it won't be, but it's not a 10-year construction project. Okay, conclusion here as I wrap up. I'd like to end on a couple of notes. I understand that there are a lot of questions and concerns about this project. This team is committed to transparency, collaboration, and professionalism throughout. We will answer questions as we have answers to them. The goal of this project is a cleaner, more environmentally responsible treatment process that meets regulatory requirements and the needs of the community while being financially responsible. My responsibility as the Public Works Director is to operate the sewer utility, including the treatment plant. The decisions we are facing have far-reaching impacts that require us to look to the future. This is a regional facility that serves a large community and will impact everyone in the Puget Sound. I like to say that's a heavy responsibility and one that I take very seriously. Regarding my staff, as you heard during the introductions, this team has many years of experience. They're thoughtful, committed, hardworking, and very honest. And I'm proud of the work they've done so far. I stand by the decisions they've made as they are been guided by sound engineering and our commitment to serving this community with integrity, collaboration, and transparency. And so with that concludes our presentation, and I'd like to open it up for questions.
Any council members with questions? Council President, was that a hand?
Yeah, that was a hand.
Okay.
2 fingers, hand, whatever. All right. This was brutal. I watched the entire Edmonds council meeting where you guys were there, and I thought you did awesome with a tough crowd asking strange questions. And I just wanted to commend you all for doing what you did there and really showing them how professional this city's staff are. Terrific job. You briefly touched on outreach that you had done, and there were a lot of questions and a little bit of confusion about the mailers that went out. When did those... One of the pieces of evidence you pointed out to that you have been doing outreach to that community was a period or a piece of mailers that you guys had sent out. When did that go out to the community to inform them of the project?
We had some interest from the immediate neighborhood back in, I would say, October, November. And previously, we had a public engagement plan as part of our value engineering report. Our consultant actually put together a very comprehensive public outreach plan, which we actually were not there to implement it yet because we didn't have a project at the time. But in response to the interest from the immediate neighborhood, we started engaging half-a-mile radius of our residents that are mostly concerned about the project. And the mailer, I believe, went out in November, so 2 planned 3 meetings, 1 in December and 2 in January. So we tried to act quickly on it and schedule 3 meetings, and I think 600 homes were sent a mailer, a postcard, and they were invited to these meetings, and I think around 100 people showed up.
Wow. Well, thank you for that clarification. It's just something I wanted to make sure was in our mind because one of the repeated comments I keep seeing is that there was no outreach. and you guys have documentation, you have the receipts. And it's not that people don't perceive that, sometimes people just throw things away that they get in the mail. I get it. But you guys are trying. You have plans, and you're doing your jobs. Another comment I have seen widely bandied about is, why didn't you guys consider the golf course? And I just wanted to give you a moment to just comment on whether or not moving the wastewater treatment plant to the Lynnwood golf course would be a viable option. Is that an alternative you guys are exploring?
I would say that, we haven't scoped this alternatives analysis that we're revisiting. But I don't think that we can ignore that public comment. So I'm very hesitant to commit to anything, to be honest with you, at this moment, but it is something that we've heard loud and clear.
Okay. That's fair. No, okay, I understand.
It's complex, I guess I would say. So, but we are considering.
I appreciate the nuance. Just to clarify for some of my colleagues, where does the money for the wastewater treatment plant capital project come from? Does any of it come from the general fund, or is it coming from a protected fund with the specific revenue source?
There is no general fund money in this. And so what's paying for this right now is our utility bills. Now, again, I would say we are committed to pursuing all kinds of money for this. Asan has been successful within the last couple months of securing $6 million from the state in very low interest loan and forgivable principal on that. We're also obviously partnering with Edmonds, and we're trying to figure out what the contributions are there. But I'm very well aware of the impact on our utility bills to pay for this project.
And I appreciate that consideration. So besides the technical and financial challenges of this project, it just seems to me that there is this emerging political one that's kind of coming from the area surrounding the wastewater treatment plant in that neighborhood, which consists of Edmonds residents, which makes it really challenging because we don't represent them. It's strange. What can we do as politicians to help address this? All right, if that's an open-ended question, feel free to give the legislative branch ideas. I'd be happy to go and knock on doors and talk with people and give them a feeling of being represented on this project and help answer questions. Having you guys and the mayor, for that matter, be going alone out there and having to kind of tackle these political questions and challenges, it just seems a little one-sided, and I want to at least offer our branch's service. So, just for the future, thank you.
Councilmember Mata.
Thank you for the presentation. Super helpful. I think the thing that I'm most concerned about, and I think I want to understand a little bit more, is the concerns of the Edmonds residents who live directly nearby. Are there any environmental concerns that we've seen over the last 60 years that would warrant us moving the location to an area that's not directly surrounded by residents? Has anything been reported in terms of health concerns, in terms of impacts to their environment? I want to understand the implications on the residents living there.
That's a good question. It's a big question. It's clearly an important question. I think, one of the things that we've heard from the surrounding community recently is concern about our incinerator and the fine associated with that from the EPA. I will say that the incinerator has been shut down since May of 2024. It's coming up on 2 years now. That is how we handle solids. We're not sure what the future solids processing has at this point. I have not heard of any health concerns with what our operations are down there outside of anecdotal, I would say. There are odor complaints, and when we get an odor complaint, we deal with it right away. Tanner is on the spot. I don't know if you want to mention that, but...
Sure, yeah. So when we shut the incinerator down, there was a lot of odor that we weren't ready for, just with the new process, so there was a learning curve there. I was told by residents just to the south of us about these odors. They called up, let us know what was going on, and I immediately went up there and I actually went door to door just to hear what was going on so I could understand the effects that were coming off of the, emissions from our trailers that we were filling. And so that way I could get into conversation with them, understand the odors that they're smelling and everything, and then see what we can do locally. So actually we have a hydrogen sulfide meter, and I would do odor testing on site in their neighborhood and try and understand if it was hydrogen sulfide they're smelling. And there's many different odors that can off-gas from sludge, but I tried to really do a quantitative and qualitative analysis on it. And then from there, we made different operating procedures to try and keep the containers inside of our building longer so that I would scrub longer and all these things. We actually made modifications to our whole entire structure so that we could shut the door correctly and get the best kind of scrubbing of the air as much as possible. We also changed the way that we went about pickups and deliveries of our containers so that we didn't have containers sitting on site in the hot sun creating the odor as much. And then we've kind of come up with a new game plan for this year to hopefully eliminate as much as possible. We also have a deodorizer that we use to help mask the smell as much as possible too.
Outside of that, let me broaden this a little bit, and I apologize if it took me a moment to articulate my thoughts. So you have a liquid stream, and then you have kind of what we're talking about on the solid side. So let's talk about the liquid stream and what goes out into Puget Sound. We have, in the past, violated the terms of the permit. But what does that mean? It's almost always when we've had a rain event. So we get rain, and a lot of extra water comes into our sewer system. We average about 4.5 million gallons a day that we treat. During a heavy rain event in the winter, we will peak the meter at 20, and we can't read above 20. But that's just how much this cross happens. But what happens in that is we can't process the sewer as fast as it's coming in. But what goes out into Puget Sound is disinfected. So there are no pathogens that go out in it. What ends up happening is that we violate for what's called total suspended solids. So it's not as clean as it should be, but it's disinfected before that happens. So that does continue to happen no matter how much we have. And that's important because a lot of other treatment plants, you'll see they have to close beaches when they have that. That hasn't happened. Secondly, and I'm very proud of the guys who run the treatment plant. In 2025, we didn't have any exceedances. So that didn't happen last year altogether. So we're going to get a plaque for that. Very, very excited. And then, the impact on the neighbors around there too. I guess, and maybe Tanner can speak to this a little bit. We were talking about it earlier. The staff that work there, they are right there at ground zero. And you'd think if anybody would be impacted by any kind of processing upsets, they're going to be the first to know about it. And
yeah, and we've had people that have worked there for 30 years, and they're inside of the tanks, they're inside of the incinerator. Who knows what they've done inside of the incinerator trying to get that thing to work over its lifespan. So the EPA was also there for 2 years monitoring what we were doing during the incinerators malfunctioning or inefficiencies, and never once did they ever say that health was a concern, I guess. And I would think if they're on site watching what we're doing, that goes a long way to them not mentioning anything like that. And we have the reports from the compliance observations. So
awesome. That's super helpful. Eases some of my worries that we have about it. I saw that the last, environmental review was in 2023, and until we have some of that design, we can't really move forward with a greater kind of environmental impact. So
that's reassuring to hear. Thank you.
Council Vice President.
Thank you for the update, guys. And they do an amazing tour. I might do it again just for the little sticker poop emojis again, because those were fun. I guess my question to you guys is, it looks like the 2021 estimate to update the existing was like 208. Have they given you, I know that they're just now working on a cost, but have they given you any kind of like anticipation of anticipated to be double, triple? At one point when we would give, rough orders of magnitude, we used to be able to tell you guys. What are they telling you these days?
Since we did the facility plan, we used those numbers for planning purposes. Those were conceptual planning class 4 estimates just for the purpose of planning. And those were the numbers that actually helped Jared and his team to work on the utility rates. And since then, we haven't had any new information built on the facility plan that would trigger any update to the cost estimate. So what the BODR is doing right now is refining a lot of those assumptions and bringing to the surface a lot of new information that would update the cost estimate. So one of the outputs from this BODR phase is to get better cost estimates, more accurate, understanding what kind of process and technologies we're going to have to invest money in. I think until next year, we won't have a lot more accurate cost estimates, but that doesn't mean that we're not ignoring the market changes, all the changes in construction prices and all of that. So we've been escalating the cost since 2021, so we have an updated understanding of what these costs are as they are before we have more information about the project.
I understand. It would just be nice to know. I mean, I gave a little bit of an update to the community this weekend after the keynote and basically told them expect it to just be, going up over time because population is growing, infrastructure needs, and nobody wants the poop to come back into their homes. And no one wants that. And so even though no one likes their bills, everyone kind of nods their heads at like not wanting the poop back in their homes. My only other comment is like as far as putting it on at the golf course or anywhere else. I don't know of undeveloped vacant property within our little city limits that I'm aware of. And no matter where you put it in the city of Lynnwood, you're going to have neighbors and you're going to have the same problems. If you put it at the golf course, you're going to even have a bigger problem than the millionaires in Edmonds. You're putting it next to everyone's kids and all the elders that go to the post office and the college and the administrative building for the school district. I mean, that's what's around the golf course. And new construction isn't usually cheaper than an addition and modernization, which is kind of what we're doing at the PFD and what we have going at the water treatment. And this is why they're the most cost effective if you don't have the money to start from the ground up. So I just wanted to kind of bring that perspective as far as probably why not. And my only last comment is in October, might have even been the end of September, I received a call from what was then candidate Erica Barnett. She was not yet on council, and she had residents in that neighborhood that were calling to her. I immediately connected her with Director Bond, and it wasn't even 24 hours later that Director Bond got in touch with them, and they were scheduling something, and that was basically what started all of was that concerns from late September, October. So I have a receipt and can say as well that we immediately passed along any concern. So I was a little surprised last week myself too when I got a call from another council member about resident concerns, because being on the finance committee, I'd also seen the bill for the marketing stuff. And so I'm like, what? And I explained to the council member that, as far as we were concerned, we weren't aware of any issues. This is what we knew of happening, and that I knew that you guys were going to be there. I did not watch the meeting. I'm glad that somebody did, but I'm really glad that it went well and that we were there to represent and let the community know that as far as we've known, we've let them know, and the minute that there was a concern, we were activated. And so I just kind of wanted to say that. Thank you.
I have to say something before Councilmember Owings. This thing about the golf course, we don't even own half the property. We do not own that land except a portion of it. So anyway, I just couldn't stop. So, Councilmember Owens.
Well, also going back to the golf course, that's not it's not a revenue negative, so it's not beneficial to the city to take away something that actually generates revenue and benefits us as a city as well. So I'll just say that. Back to what I really wanted to ask you guys about. So right now, from what I understand, when there's a heavy rain, there's an overflow, and we have to before it's fully treated, send it out into the Puget Sound. And so I have a construction background. I've worked on some projects in Seattle that have to do with the water treatment facility down there. They have storage tanks that, store it for a short amount of time so that way the facility can take up on it or pick up on the excess work. Is that something that we're planning with this revamp, or is that something that we might have to add later on down the road when the fines become not cost effective to just pay?
I would say those storage tanks are for much larger systems that are older than ours that have commingled systems. So older systems would put stormwater. They would allow downspout connections into the sanitary sewer, and particularly in Seattle, that's a big problem because you immediately have all that. So it's very challenging to go back through time and through all these connections, find them, disconnect them, cut them off. And so it's kind of think of it as almost like a regional approach to put in one of these very large vaults. They're only online in those rain events, and that's where they store it so they don't surcharge out there. Our approach has been a little different. Our system's not big enough and not old enough to really make that feasible, but we have an active, so it's called I&I, infiltration and inflow, and that's groundwater, that's rainwater going into our sanitary sewer system. So we have an I&I program on the collections side. That's where we send cameras through our pipes. We look for disconnections, cracks, breaks. We'll do things like smoke test where we can go into a neighborhood and we can see if somebody's downspout or gutter is connected to there, and we'll disconnect it through our I&I program. We report every year to Ecology on that and how much we've actually removed, how many points of I&I and cross connections we have. From the treatment plant perspective, over the last couple of years, it's been effective. So in those peaking rain events that we're talking about, they don't peak nearly what they used to do several years ago. So we're really approaching it from a collection system, eliminating that at the source. The other thing I'd say, I guess, on real quick, the golf course. As we evaluate alternatives, you can see on that there are pros and there are cons. So any alternative we look at, even if it looks like it's the rosiest best one, there's going to be some cons on there that we have to consider. You'd mentioned economic impact, community impact, impact on maybe schools. There's going to, so it's not just a financial analysis. There are pros, there are cons that we have to evaluate.
So, Mayor Lutweiler.
When you do your analysis for the golf course, factor in, I'll be there changing the tree. No, so you've talked about you don't have the design finalized yet. That's why you can't do some of the more follow-up, like the environmental reviews and everything. What I'm trying to better understand is it is a tight spot from doing the tour. It is definitely a tight spot, and I know you mentioned we've acquired some land to provide more room for either a permanent building or just maybe staging or some combination of that. Given the level of planning and detail you're able to go into when you were considering upgrading the existing plant, how confident are we in being able to do that construction on the current site while operating the plant? Like, what's your level of confidence based on whatever detail you have now, and then how much could that potentially change when you do this refreshed assessment given all the new variables?
That's a great question. We had some level of skepticism when we had the facility plan developed, and we were in the same spot. We were not really sure whether it works or not. And one of the ways we tried to gain that confidence was to hire Hazen and Sawyer back then as a third party to take an objective look at those recommendations. And we tasked them with looking into the risks and opportunities altogether to see if we're going to implement those facility plan recommendations, what are the risks and opportunities? What are the biggest challenges that we're facing? And they came up with a list of all the risks. They came up with tens of different risks, and they prioritized them into 20 top priority risks. So that gave us a lot more confidence, and we realized that the plan that we had was actually an intelligent one. It was a smart plan. And in the facility plan, it actually provides us an opportunity to phase this project so we don't have to deconstruct and construct what we have. So the way it's proposed in the facility plan, building that headworks in the ravine allows us to commission it, test it, and see if it's compliant with the regulations. And if it works, then we go ahead and decommission the existing headworks. And when we do that, that allows us to use that as space to do the same process again for the other treatment processes. So,
are there examples that you've looked at of other cities that have followed, or municipalities that have followed a similar approach, just for precedent?
Phasing in construction is pretty standard, but we are a very unique treatment plan with the tight space we have, with all the things that have been built backwards. There's not really a similar, an exact type situation somewhere else that we can actually look into and learn from it. I personally did a lot of studying when I was in school, and my capstone project was addressing complexities of upgrading wastewater treatment plants. And I dedicated almost 2 years to study how we can fix this problem with all these variables, with all these interconnected factors that are interplay with each other. So, and as part of my case study, I couldn't find anything very close to the situation we have, but there are practices that are used in other projects like phasing construction, commission and decommissioning strategies that are applicable to this project that could be used to make it feasible.
So unique, or like we said, it's an interesting area, but we've done some detailed analysis leveraging subject matter experts. We're following best practices conceptually with a lot of other projects. And then what you've described, we're moving through this planning process to now get into more of what would that look like. Okay.
Yeah, we continue keeping that level of skepticism to what we're producing through this process. I always talk with Jared about this. We're never sure that this is going to work. We keep at least 10-20% of the skepticism to make sure that we're making the right decisions. We're keeping that objectivity throughout the project. We're not just 100% sure. And we're trying to build this project in a way that it gives us flexibility to adapt to all those surprises and uncertainties as we go, rather than just trying to build a fixed scenario and design everything for it. So if we can do that, I think we'll be able to pivot if something goes wrong or not predicted.
I'll just add really quick. Our engineer that we selected, Hazen and Sawyer, has extensive experience doing this throughout the nation. They instilled a lot of confidence in us. That's why they were selected.
Great, thank you.
Any other council members? Okay, Council Vice President.
It is a complicated site. I too did a bunch of research to try to, in the industry and whatnot before this went out to bid. And matter of fact, a lot of people are interested in doing work in Lynnwood, and this is one that I was like, well, have you ever done one? And they're like, no. And I'm like, then no, don't even, because it doesn't get any more complicated than this. This is you have the ocean, you have wetlands, you have everything that makes a site complicated, but they've been planning for it the whole time, and we don't have a better site. And just so that you guys are aware, the firm that they have selected isn't the one that's going to build it. And so I'm glad that they have this expertise in designing it and coming up with the phasing, because then there'll be a whole nother procurement for when it is ready to build. So these guys, even though they decided to be on the design stage, which basically conflicts them, I believe, from actually doing the work when it goes out for construction. But that's a better value to us as a city, because we get to gain their expertise in this complicated site of ours that, quite honestly, we don't have anywhere better to put it, and it's already there. And so they've been figuring out what to do with it since then, has been my assessment. And so I just wanted to kind of, because I've been following this for a long time and trying to, before and after, put my ear to the ground on good contractors that were out there and designers, because I knew that it was a pickle. So thank you guys for your presentation and everything, and I look forward to seeing it, and it's going to be expensive, but we'll get there.
Well, last comments by me. Thank you. This it bothers me, the narrative, and Mr. Conroy of Edmonds expressed it again, that they didn't know anything about this till October. Was it 2021 when the City of Lynnwood Public Works first contacted the City of Edmonds on this?
Yeah, I went back and looked at my records, and I can see where we reached out to Edmonds staff in June of 2021.
And there's been several contacts.
Yeah, so that was the initial contact. And then we met with them in October of 2021. At that time, we were told that staff had informed the Edmonds mayor of the project. He was aware of it. We continued contact from that moment on with staff in both their planning department and their public works department. There was some staffing turnover on the Edmonds side that made some of this challenging, but that didn't stop us from engaging and keeping them informed of where our project was at, what decisions were coming. We've had regular contact with Edmonds staff.
Yeah, because I've gotten emails from the current mayor and from their council members that they didn't know anything about this. And I would just say, that's not our public works responsibilities to inform different cities' city council. They have a public works. And as you said, their public works has a share of this project. So I just wanted to say that. And then the irony of the last meeting where we were at City of Edmonds City Council, everybody left after your presentation, and then the next order of business was that the Edmonds City Council approved $300,000 for a scrubber and deodorizer at their Edmonds wastewater treatment plant because of the complaints that they've had down there about odor control and scrubbing. And where did they get the recommendation for that product? It was from us. So the narrative should, for me, is that we've done our best to let them know. We're doing our best to work with them. But I just appreciate our staff for all the hard work they're doing. Thank you.
I appreciate that sentiment very much.
I'm sorry. So then, with that, is there any new business tonight? Yes, Council President.
Just briefly, just for the good of the order, we've been talking a lot about money tonight, and I just want to remind people that we went way over budget on our legal fees in the legislative branch last year, and we're still trying to make that math work out. So this year, just be mindful of the time you spend reaching out to Lisa Marshall, our attorney. That fund is a limited amount. That's it. Thank you.
All right. With that, we are adjourned. Thank you.